I'm, oh, okay. I am calling this meeting to order at 6:03. This is a regular meeting for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
I will. Tim Hale.
Here.
Stephanie Nowers. Here. Dee McKee is in the building, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Robert Yunt, are you on the phone? He will
Here.
be. Thank you. Bill Gamble.
Here.
Dimitri Fonoff is also here, Madam Mayor. And Ron Bernier.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? If there's no objection, I would like to move that ordinance 24052 and 24054, both of them have to do with animal care, that they would be combined and we would have the public hearings at the same time. Is there any objection to doing that? I'll give you a minute so you can look them up. You object? No, I don't, but I have something else. Oh, you have something to make a change? Okay, all right. So seeing no objection, then ordinance 24052 and ordinance 24054 will be combined. And then Assembly Person Nowers.
I have a conflict to state, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I apologize. I was just going to state a conflict in regards to AM 24058 later. I would appreciate the ability to not vote on this.
Madam Mayor, we will have to just pull that from the consent agenda.
Okay, alrighty, so we'll pull it, we'll sort of divide the question on the AMs and we'll take that up separately and, okay, Assembly Person, you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good, alrighty. Now, Assembly Person Nowers, you had a comment or?
Yeah, I was gonna just also pull, and I think Assemblymember Yunt was gonna do it, but I'll do it for him, is RS 24-056 from the consent agenda.
056. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd
Assembly
also like
Person.
to pull Resolution 24-052 from the consent agenda.
Okay, resolution 24052, not ordinance, right?
That's correct.
Right, okay, thank you. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay, we'll give you a minute, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Any further changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing and hearing none, the agenda is approved with the changes. If you'll all rise, please, and Assemblyperson Gamble, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda is minutes of preceding meetings, and we do not have any that have been presented to us. The next item is reports of correspondence, the agency reports. Is there anyone from either one of the three cities here? I don't see anybody, okay. Report from the school district, okay, Katie?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, and Manager Brown. For the record, my name is Katie Gardner. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Business and Operations for the Mat-Su School District. As always, thanks very much for the opportunity to present and provide an update on behalf of the school district. As many may know, we are T-minus 2 days to the end of school, and while I don't want to speak for all 19,000 students, I know that the three in the Gardner household are pretty excited for summer. Last week was graduation week and an opportunity for a number of seniors to celebrate the culmination of their K-12 career and for the school district to wish them farewell on the next phase of their lives. An interesting time for me as I realized that it's been 25 years since I was one of those students to walk across that stage, and so to the class of 2024, we always wish them well and remind them that it goes by quickly. Also want to provide a reminder that tomorrow we do have a regular school board meeting. The meeting itself starts at 6 o'clock, so hopefully individuals, either the assembly or members of the community, if you can't attend in person, we do live stream those meetings. And beginning at 5:30, we will be celebrating our retirees this year. We've got about 40 teachers who will be moving on to the next phase of their lives, and we appreciate the opportunity to thank them for their service and really celebrate the contributions they've made to students in our valley and also to our school district specifically. We will also be celebrating students in music, and that is pretty fortuitous because we will also be recognizing Kelly Rentz, who is a Mat-Su School District teacher and was just named the Alaska Teacher of the Year. So we're really proud that she's representing Mat-Su very well and working with our music students across the district. I also just want to point out that during the session we'll be reviewing some of the statistics from graduation. Dr. Traney will be talking a little bit about reading education and the progress that we're seeing on this most recent round of testing. And then we'll also be starting the final budget adoption with the board. So thank you to the Assembly for your support from the budget appropriation. I appreciated hearing and have passed on the comments from that meeting and your feedback, and we'll certainly keep that in mind as we work through this budget cycle as well as really plan for next year. Just as means of an update, since I know this question came up, at the end of the legislative session, the school district did receive an increase of funding as hoped. So on a per student basis, in one time, we did receive $680 in addition to the BSA, which is more than we had anticipated in our initial budget development process, and also had some increases to student transportation and support of the READS Act. All in all, this still results in a small deficit for the budget, as it doesn't cover the funding from COVID relief that we'd been using. But it's good news. We're happy to be able to present that information to the board tomorrow night, and they will continue to review and hopefully have a budget adopted on June 5th. So thank you very much, and if there's questions, I can take them, but I see you have a lengthy agenda tonight.
Thank you for a successful school year. So, we do not have a verbal report from the state of Alaska, but Todd did send an email to the clerk, and the clerk has sent that out. he's just reiterating the fact that he's always available if we have any questions or anything. The next item is committee reports, the Joint Assembly School Board Committee on School Issues. I don't think there was a meeting, was there, sir? Okay. And are there any public relations reports by the Assembly? Okay. And then, Mr. Brown, we're ready for you for your report, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite John Harris. John Harris and Bill Stoltz cover Juneau issues for us. Obviously, the legislature just wrapped up, so asked them to come and provide a quick summary of wrap-up and really create an opportunity for the Assembly if you have any questions for them about bills that were being tracked or anything that's kind of residual from Juneau. So we wanted to make them available to you tonight. Appreciate you gentlemen joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the Assembly, I first want to apologize to Assembly Member Nowers. We weren't able to get the bill across the table that you wanted for the Planning Commission, but we'll have to put it in a piece of legislation next year. It did have some interest from folks, but it also had some conflicts with others that unfortunately we weren't able to slip it in another bill. That happened a lot this year at the end of session, but we'll work on it. Next year, they say there's always next year, but you never know. For the borough's point of view, I want to continue where the young lady from the school district said, first and foremost, there's another step to the whole process I'm going to talk about, and that deals with that big tall guy from the valley on the third floor that has the veto pen, and he's said numerous times that he's not going to be afraid to use it. There's a couple of reasons why. I won't get into those. Some of them are personal with folks and the way they voted, and certainly one member who was running for or trying to get back on the Board of Education and is a personal friend of the governor's, and some people voted against him, and I don't think the governor always likes that so well. So anyway, having said that, a couple of things that both are for the school and for the borough. Full funding for school bond reimbursement, which is a big deal for us. I mean, here is in the budget. I don't think that will, face the red ink at all, as the $680 increase outside the BSA, but funded as if it were inside the BSA. I don't believe the governor's pretty much said he's not going to touch that. And one of the reasons why is that the Mat-Su School District had a lot of issues, and I think the governor has a near and dear appreciation of the Mat-Su School District, and so reducing that, as he's done in the past, would have a big impact here too. So, I don't think he cares as much probably if it affects some other parts of the state, but maybe the next door here, about 40 miles away or whatever, but I think that if it affects his home a lot, which it would, I don't think he's going to do it. So he's pretty much said he's not going to. Also, I guess they call it, I used to think of it as municipal revenue sharing, but it's been fully funded as well, so everybody should get their share of that according to the statute. There's a whole bunch of things, I'll try to be brief, but there's a whole bunch of things that got funded out of legislators' discretion. But things that, there's the Big Lake Lions for $300,000 and Glacier View for $100,000 and go on down. But big ones for us that were on our priority list, $2.5 million for the flood and erosion mitigation, $2.5 million for local, well, Bill's gonna talk about the fishery stuff, so I'll let him talk about that. And then some other money, Representative Rauscher put $750,000 of his allotted money into his areas for roads. Also, the Willow Fire EMS, $700,000, which is not the full amount that was asked for, but it's a start. And that came out of one of the legislators who represent that area that appreciated that, and so he put it in. And then the water and wastewater systems for Wasilla was put in by one of the legislators. It's sort of a Wasilla ask, but it's still part of the borough, and so it's important. And then the other big ask that we had was $2 million for the water connection between Wasilla and Palmer. There's a whole bunch of DOT things. Those didn't have anything to do with me or the legislators working on those. Those are DOT asks. They come with federal, federal match. But some of the big ones, there's a Big Lake Road project, $16 million. And then Herman Road, $2.5 million. And Wasilla Fish Hook, $50 million. And then the West Susitna Access, $20 million. I know that wasn't, I think they supported it, but it wasn't a borough priority necessarily. And then the Palmer Courthouse at about $5 million for renovations of it. And then last but not least, I want to end up with, those are budget items, but there was legislation that was being talked about at the very end of session, and you always have to watch these things because at the last minute, some of the most controversial and sometimes difficult things to work against came up, and one of those was a piece of legislation dealing with municipalities and how much you might be able to go up to deduct for 65-year-old people and up, and disabled veterans and those types of things, which you're able to do. And right now, the number is 150,000. You know, it's mandatory, 150,000 for them. And you could go up as high as you want, but it's your choice, not the state telling you. So the legislation was to increase it to 450,000. That's where you had to start. And so I'm sure 65-year-old people and up think that's a great deal, but
Right.
it's something, in my opinion, and I think, you know, Mr. Brown and I talked about this at length, it's something you ought to set, not the state of Alaska telling you. It's a big unfunded mandate. So it's something that you don't have a choice. If they say it, you'll do it. I don't know that all of you like that necessarily, but, and then the second part of that bill is for everybody. You know, the state says 75,000 you deduct for a homeowner, and they wanted to raise it to 150,000, which would have been mandatory for everybody. The bill failed overall, but that issue will not go away.
Right.
It will be back in front of the legislature next year, I can guarantee it. 3 members of the Finance Committee Senate Finance Committee that undoubtedly will be back. Bert Stedman, Lyman Hoffman, Donnie Olson, all 3 of them. And then Jesse Keel from Juneau. He was more reserved on it because it'd have a big effect on Juneau.
Right.
But those 3, they're all for it, and they want it to be, quite frankly, done based upon how much you are worth, you know, and so commonly called needs-based, and that's a difficult thing to do, but that's what they're looking at, so, you know, we'll have to be on our toes about that. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Bill. That's all I have. I'll take questions if you want to ask questions, but and I appreciate Stephanie and Bill and you coming down to Juneau. I wish more members could come down. It's a great learning experience. You get to see it, but it's really a learning experience the last 48 hours. That's when stuff happens that you'd hope didn't happen or that you really hope would happen. You know, it just depends on what side of the issue you're on. But things really can move fast, and people are trying all kind of legal tricks, but tricks nonetheless. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Bill. He didn't have any experience in doing that, but I'll let him talk.
Thank you. Bill Stoltz. I work with John Harris on borough issues and primarily fisheries. It's always good to present with John so you get the long and the short of things. And that, and I've overused that gag line over a couple of decades I've known him. On fisheries, first I'd be remiss if we didn't thank the Borough Assembly and Mayor DeVries for the incredible investment you put in the Cook Inlet cycle process. We didn't lose ground, which was an incredible with all that, and faced with the federal economic zone from the Cook Inlet drifters lawsuit. It was the uncertainty of that, and we have a supportive commissioner, so he left a lot of breadcrumbs, letting us know that as decisions were made, I think he is going to be attentive to the good, solid scientific presentations that Mac Menard and Larry Engel and Howard Delo. We have an all-star team of volunteers that other groups pay a lot of money for. So we have there's not a single person in the Valley delegation that isn't an advocate of fisheries issues, everything from habitat to fighting some of the fights on allocation, but often those are more political stands. But with that said, we had 2 members of our delegation, Kevin McCabe serving on the Fisheries Committee, kept things forefront, and Delana Johnson was our champion on the budget process. And this is for the second year she's been in there, and the, there's some pretty significant accomplishments, and I just have to refresh this screen here so I don't miss anything. There was some significant funding in the budget, or the Upper Cook Inlet Genetics Study. And Larry Engel could give you a sermon on this. Mine will be a sermonette, much shorter, but that's, there are allocations decisions that should be made based on what we intuitively know. Those genetic studies prove it so that the fish managers and the board members have the information. It's proven, and it's that $300,000 a year from 2025 to 2030. Larry Engel would tell you that's probably the most significant funding we receive, because that will verify what we know, and critical in a mixed stock management where you have all the species that are coming in at once. And so last minute emergency openings in late in the season where they really, the industry is really more interested in targeting cohos. It gives us the evidence, and next board cycle coming up, it's not an immediate gratification, but the groundwork and the science will be established and laid, and that's something I had the opportunity to be involved with that, and this completion of that, thanks to Representative Johnson's office, and I know Assemblyman Gamble had a lot of DNA on that project as a former staffer, and then lobbying down there on behalf of the residents of Borough this year. That's a significant amount for the next 5 years. I think that's $1.5 million for the genetics study. The weirs have been a priority of the borough through the, which endorsed by the assembly and worked on hard to establish the priorities for the weir funding. We got all but one of the weirs, and I think it pained Representative Johnson and her staff to lose that one, but I'd like to concentrate on what they actually were able to secure in a contentious environment. And the gelatina weir startup, $45,000 this year, and $85,000 added to the base, and that's in perpetuity. As much as that is in the political process, that'll fund one seasonal AFD Tech 2 and 2 Tech 3s. So that's the manpower, woman power, our research technicians to provide that essential base information we need for fish management. The capital budget, it's an incredible investment in the valley. One of the things when we're presenting the priorities of the Mat-Su Valley, we have a pretty clean record, and it's probably the purest. It's non-economic and it's habitat-based. And what this assembly and this borough through several administrations has done, the investment on repairing the sins of past people, whether it's DOT and road projects on the culvert passages, the fish passages. There's a $2.5 million investment on that, and that includes, and it's very broad. It allows for pike and other invasive control and hopefully eradication in some areas, and habitat restoration and rehabilitation. That gives us a really high moral ascendancy when we're presenting to the Board of Fish and to the management professionals that we have that record of investing our taxpayers' money in that while we're asking for help as well. No other region in the state has the record that this region has on fixing problems that weren't really caused by the borough. And just to go back to last year when Assemblyman Gamble was in there fighting the fight for the borough on a different level as a staffer to Representative Johnson, we got some permanent insertions in the budget that's added to the base for Jim Creek. That was a $55,000 addition, and that's $25,000 for Fish Creek and $41K for Deska. That was last year's money, which was really being spent in this cycle all the way till July. So appreciate you doing the mop-up work as well this year in providing that. But that's the essential. I think it's your voters and your the assembly have made fisheries a priority on not just allocation, where most other people fight a less savory battle, of course, we're always interested in that, but we make the scientific case and have probably the most professional presentation of any at those, and it's because of the investments that the borough has advocated and our borough legislators and assembly have pushed for over continuous years. And it's really gratifying being there. My testimony when I testified, it said, we're probably the only group you're gonna hear that doesn't have only an economic interest in this, and a consistent record of habitat restoration and overall concern of the resource, not the economics overall. We have done the economic studies, that's important, but it's really gratifying to be able to present a moral argument that's just not about we want our piece of the pie, and it's because of the investment that the mayor and the assembly and the manager have agreed to make for fisheries. So that will close my overly long statement.
Okay, does the assembly have questions of either Bill or John? Yes, Assemblyperson Hours, go ahead.
More just a comment, the long or short of it, I really appreciate the efforts down there, and always enjoy, it's always entertaining to visit down there, especially when the speaker is escorting us around. And I think on fisheries, I just want to also just a shout out to that, the amount of work that's gone into helping build back our fisheries. I don't think there's anybody in the valley that isn't frustrated at the state of our king salmon and our coho runs, and trying to work to bring that back with science and fish counts, and our Fish and Wildlife Commission, which worked to try to get more fish up the inlet, is just, it's an ongoing battle. So I really appreciate the efforts on that. And then I just say overall, I think a lot of good legislation got passed this session, even though from afar it may seem like, there was some chaos. And one I just wanted to single out that is important to everybody in the valley is the governor's bill, HB 307, and also which would get rid of tariffs on the electric lines we have, and also tax independent power producers the same rate that utilities were. And that's going to open up our grid for the ability to have other energy sources come in that hopefully can deal with some of our natural gas issues. And then also the governor supported the high voltage direct current line that we have some federal funding from, that will have a line from the Kenai up to here, which will allow us to move power on the grid. And so I was really, really happy to, all the energy bills, to see those get through, because they're just baseline no matter what type of energy you're talking about. It allows us to have more options and more ability to try to stabilize our energy prices. So that's a long way to say thank you for all your work down there.
Just a brief follow, I know you time, but this is supposed to be an energy and education. And of course, at the end, education took a different turn because of the court system interjecting themselves, in a litigation over correspondence schools, homeschooling, that sort of thing. So that's still to be decided, but the legislature passed a piece of legislation right at the end that hopefully will bridge over at least until the Supreme Court makes a decision, which it sounds like they're going to make one here relatively soon versus drag it out too much. So, and thank you, Representative, or Assemblymember Nowers. I'm so used to saying representative, I can hardly, or senator. But yes, energy, but who knows how long it will take. Those are all stair-step items. They're good. They got rid of the or if the governor signs it, he's still contemplating because he didn't get everything he wanted, so he doesn't know whether to call him back to finish some things. There were some things that happened in Cook Inlet, or that didn't happen in Cook Inlet on royalty relief, some other things like that the governor really wanted. But those didn't go across the finish line. So we'll see where it all ends up. But I do believe the governor will sign the bills that were put in front of him that dealt with energy. But they're huge issues. Freezing in the dark, as former Congressman Don Young used to say, isn't a pretty picture. So, you've got to, and I know that there are entities out there that are really working right now to import gas, to look at importing gas, because what are their options? If we don't get more gas out of Cook Inlet, what are their options right away? So they've got to be prepared, especially the main distributor of gas in the state, can't do without gas. And so they're working on that as we speak. So anyway.
Deputy Mayor, did you have comments or a question?
The homeschool allotments and stuff that got pushed to the Supreme Court, was there any legislation that was passed Before that, has it even gotten ruled on?
Not before, but after, right at the end of session, there was a piece of legislation, I think it was House Bill 400, that is sort of some guidelines out there to hopefully get through both this season, the school season, which isn't very much longer, obviously, a couple more days for most people, and then going through, because I think if it's not resolved by the Supreme Court, if it's not resolved with satisfaction of the governor and some others, there's likely to be a special session to deal with that, to try and come up with a piece of legislation that deals with it. But, the Constitution is pretty clear, like it or not, it's pretty clear that you can't use state money for religious and or private, schools. And and it has been used that in small cases, but in some cases. And that was what the litigation was about. But Senator Hughes pointed it out. I was kind of cringing every time she said something, but she said it on the floor of the Senate a number of times. There are other places that state money is going to private and religious schools.
Exactly.
So, but nobody has litigated that at this point. So, but if they do, I think the decision will probably be very much the same as it is, with this. So, it would take a constitutional change to get it where the legislature could actually directly give money to to private and religious. It's not just religious; it's private too. They don't have to be religious. It could
Right,
be,
yeah, Alaska Club or any of these
there's
other.
there's a whole bunch of them, anyway, that's an ongoing deal. So we'll see how that turns out.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for a job well done. Madam
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Manager?
Yeah, I'm going to invite Casey Ressler up. He's the CEO for the Matsu Convention Visitors Bureau. Casey did a presentation at our Spring Economic Summit about projections for this tourism season and the economic impact. So I thought it was some information the Assembly might find helpful. So I invited him to come and provide a short presentation. He assured me it won't be any longer than 45 minutes. That's a joke. It'll be much less than
I had
that.
to promise it would be a joke.
All right, the floor's yours.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Manager Brown, members of the Assembly, thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you guys today. And I will keep it brief. I know you have a stacked agenda. So we'll dig into a few of our trends and our demographics, and then also what the summer is going to look like from the tourism standpoint. One of the things in the last year was a commitment from our organization to become more data-driven. I think it lets us have better decision-making, and we can really see the economic impact as opposed to just placing an ad and hoping it works. So the first thing we wanted to find out was who are our visitors. This is the top 10 market that we have coming in, and we are doing this through geo-tracking. So basically, if you have a weather app on your phone, it's picking you up. And if you get pinged twice within 2 hours at points of interest, you're counted as a visitor, and it knows where you've come from. So you can see, obviously, Anchorage is big there, but Seattle-Tacoma area represents 12% of our visitors, and the average spend of those visitors is $421. So it makes sense for us to be marketing to those visitors instead of somebody from Salt Lake City, let's say, that only represents 1.6% of our visitors and $318 spend. So by digging into these data models, we can really see where our money is going to be best spent in terms of bringing people from outside. It's almost kind of a change in philosophy from volume to value. So is it more important to have 100,000 people here, or is it more important to have 50,000 that are spending like 100,000? But as you can see, 31% are Alaskans from outside the borough, so that's a market that we can't take lightly. Starting next week, we're going to have a $20,000 in-state marketing campaign, pointing to Alaskan resident specials on our website. And it's kind of a cool campaign because it's designed with 4 different creative sets. One's the Upper Susitna and Talkeetna, one's Wasilla, one's Palmer, and one is the Glen Highway North. So what are they visiting? Outdoor recreation leads the way, and that's probably no surprise to anybody, and same thing with accommodations. But interesting enough, retail and food represents 20 and 15% of the points of interest that they're visiting when they're in market. So what does it all mean? 7% of total spending in our Matsu restaurants comes from the visitors. 15% in retail, and 70% in accommodations, which is not really that surprising, but the visitor dollars are important to this local economy. As I said, volume versus spending is a little bit of a shift of mindset, but it's something that I think is important because it maximizes the economic development of tourism here in the valley. Using the data to market makes us a lot more efficient. That's the most important thing for us, is to account for every dollar that goes out of our office and making sure it's spent wisely. So what does the summer look like? It looks a lot like fall outside, but we will have one, I promise you, but you can already see all the motor coaches. So the tourism summer has started already. Even though we're not anywhere near a cruise port, 28% of total passengers of cruisers come to the valley, or come to South Central, I should say. So it remains flat this year, but kind of. There's opportunities within that. Last year, there were 467,000 cross-Gulf passengers projected, but only 415,000 of those were sold. So this year, with 463,000 passengers projected, it's possible we can actually make up ground in that market. And then statewide, 1.65 million. Another way we kind of gauge things is through short-term rentals, and there's over 1,000 short-term rentals in the Mat-Su Borough, which is amazing. I would have never guessed that. And so we can look at everything from the average daily rate, the revenue per available room, but the thing that I like to look at is the pacing reports. It gives us a good snapshot of what's happening with the independent traveler. So just for the borough as a whole, we're up 24% in June, 26% in July, and that gets up to 40% in August. And these are rooms that have already been booked. So it's looking very, very strong. And then I just kind of dug into different cities and locations. Palmer, obviously, same thing, 56% in August. A lot of that's Alaska State Fair related. And then in Talkeetna, you can see almost up to 60% in September. So it's looking very, very strong. Oddly, though, looking at it, with all the increased competition and more listings that come available, the average daily rate is actually down. And that's not a trend that you see around. Most of the people, prices are rising. So it's down everywhere from 2 to 10% throughout the summer. But it goes to say, you have that many more people coming in, a smaller average daily rate doesn't really impact it as much as the overall volume. So overall, I would say with cruise and group tours, about the same as what we did last year. And the increased demand, particularly later in the summer, that we're gonna have a very, very strong season. We're coming off of a record year for bed tax collections and visitors. So it's looking like very positive. Don't get frustrated when you're behind a motor coach. They're bringing money to our businesses. And it even looks like it's gonna be strong right into the fall. So I'm happy to take any questions. Did I leave 40 minutes on the table?
We appreciate that.
Assemblyperson Hours.
Thank you. The short-term rentals, so you said about 1,000 in the valley. Are you getting, is that VRBO, Airbnb?
Yeah, so the program we use is called AirDNA, and it scrapes VRBO and Airbnb, and then it anonymizes the data. So we can't see what your Airbnb is charging, but we can see in the overall picture.
Okay. Is that something you have tracked over time? Like you can look back at the
I
last
can look
5
back
years?
about 10 years, yep.
Okay. I'd just be interested in maybe follow up with you and
Yeah,
see what
for
that
sure.
looks like. Thank you.
Any other questions from assembly members? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, do you have anything more?
That's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, do you have a report?
I do not. Summer hopefully is coming soon, although it doesn't look like it today. Our summer intern is here for the summer. Her name is Ashton. She's a law student at Gonzaga down in Spokane, Washington. She's from Anchorage, so she's doing the reverse commute, so we don't hold that against her. So come by the office, say hi to her. And then the next regular meeting, I will be out of state once again for a family medical issue, and Mr. Asherman will be here with you.
Okay.
That's all I have tonight.
Questions of the attorney? No? Madam Clerk, do you have comments?
All I have is the clerk's report is in the red folder, and all it really has on it this time is the upcoming meeting schedule through August.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. The next item on our agenda is citizens and other correspondence. Are there any comments on the citizens and other correspondence? Okay, hearing none, they are presented. Madam Clerk, would you read the IMs?
IM 24098, informing the Assembly of grant amendment for time extension only for Alaska Sustainable Salmon Fund grant number 55008, Birch and Crocker Creek Fish Passage Improvement Project to be presented to the manager for signature. IM 24108, informing the Assembly of a memorandum of agreement and temporary construction permit for the Alaska State Department of Transportation and Public Facilities Bogard Road Pavement Preservation Project. IM 24109, informing the Assembly of that the Palmer Pioneer Cemetery and the Borough are executing quitclaim deeds to correct and clarify title for the Palmer Pioneer Cemetery property and Matanuska River Park property. And IM 24110, informing the Assembly of a grant amendment for time extension only to be presented to the manager for signature for Birch and Crocker Fish Passage improvements.
Are there any comments from the Assembly on the IMs? Okay, hearing none, they are presented. We do not have any persons to be heard at this time. Public hearings, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24031, an ordinance amending MSB 8.40 liquor license referrals regarding transfers of alcoholic beverage licenses from the borough into the cities. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
We have a staff report. Oh, Nick. Mr. Attorney, are you the staff?
I guess so. The manager's nodding at me, so.
You got elected here.
Agreed upon. This is why we have a pre-meeting.
Oh,
So let me pull it up here. So this ordinance is sponsored by Assemblymember Yunt to update Borough Code, align with state law, and kind of update our processes regarding liquor license referrals. So I believe it was back 2007, 2008 timeframe. The state law was amended to allow liquor licenses, specifically beverage dispensary licenses, to go from the borough into a city. As you may know, all of the alcohol licenses in the state are limited by population, set by population limits. And so if a city is already at their limit and there's an unused license or an available license in the borough, there's a process through state law where they can go to the ABC board and also the assembly has to approve it. And then the permission could be granted to pull the license out of the borough and then go into the city, even though you otherwise couldn't. When it was passed back in 2007, the Borough Assembly amended our code to allow it to happen once every 10 years. There was a bill about 18 months ago now, it was called SB 91, that comprehensively rewrote a bunch of the alcohol licenses, liquor laws of the state of Alaska. As part of that, what updated was there are other categories of licenses which can now be eligible for this transfer. Package store, brewery retail, winery retail, and then it also allows for beverage dispensary licenses to be transferred into a restaurant, hotel, motel, resort, or similar business. So as a result of that, the proposal here is to update the code, not only to allow that, the state law also allows up to 3 licenses every decade per city to take advantage of this. Again, at the end of the day, it's all up to the Borough Assembly because you'd have to vote on whether or not to allow the transfer to happen. So what this does is it aligns our code with the state processes to allow that as an option, or at least they could make the proposal. You recently had one here within the past couple of months going into the city of Wasilla for the Meter Rose Square. Staff did an analysis, a report, came forward, you voted. The vote was yes, and that's in process now. The other couple of things that are going on here is there's some cleanup in terms of the public process and the outreach and how citizens could either tell the planning department or the state Alcohol Beverage Control Board about protests. There's some timelines that are being amended and clarified regarding public notice. I believe there's an amendment here tonight to clean up one of those here. And that's it.
okay, questions of staff? Alrighty, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have sign up? We do not have a sign-up sheet. So anyone is welcome to address the assembly at this time regarding ordinance 24031. Yes, just come forward.
It's green. It must be on.
Yeah.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Edna DeVries and friend and assembly members. My name is John Klaprick. I'm a 40-year businessman in the Matsu Valley, and I compliment Casey Ressler, taking the head of the Matsu Convention Visitors Bureau. I was on the original planning advisory board with Cindy Bettini in 1978, whether we should start a Matsu Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we commenced with a $40,000 budget, and look where we are today. So congratulations to that leadership. I highly recommend you approve this liquor license legislation of 031. As a business consultant, there's a couple of things that make sense. Number one, aligning ourselves with state legislation makes it sense for business people to understand what we can do and what we can't do. So number one, align it with what the state says, yes. Number two, it makes good sense for a business plan for the Matsu Borough. We're still getting 3.1 families a day coming to the Matsu Valley. Anchorage is losing, Fairbanks is losing. This new personnel is desiring greater options. And 33% of our valley residents that make the most money are in Anchorage, and at the end of the day, they say, I'd like a little upscale. I might go to Sullivan's, or I might go to Orso's, or I might do something there. This will allow that opportunity to say, let's fill a need that is needed. So I highly recommend that, as well as let your cities develop increased sales tax so they can take care of public safety and roads and issues. So that will enhance their ability to take care of themselves and do more of our own laundry. So I think it's absolutely essential that you allow this to happen, state law, increase economic development, and fill a need that our community wants and is good for our community. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to address the assembly on this ordinance? Do we have anybody online, Caleb? We do not. One last time. Okay, seeing no one, then I will close the public hearing. And Assemblyperson Yount, are you on?
I move to adopt ordinance 24-031, if I may speak briefly to it.
Yes, you may, sir. Go ahead.
I echo everything the gentleman just said there. I didn't catch his name. I apologize. But he is right. This just provides economic opportunity for the cities. What I found to be the most odd about the whole thing was that the borough code was more restrictive than the state. The state allows 3 per decade. We allowed 1. This was just an opportunity to clean that up, and so it's pretty simple. I did talk to Ms. Nowers. I think she has an amendment to offer, and it made a lot of sense to me, so I'll let her visit next about that. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Nowers, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd move to amend OR 24-031 by amending 8.40.080F as follows. Members of the public and active community councils notified in accordance with this section shall have 30 calendar days from the date notice is sent by the borough to provide a written comment concerning the proposed relocation to the planning director, and I can speak briefly to it.
Sure, go ahead.
I think this is a great piece of legislation. I thank Assemblymember Yount for bringing it to allow liquor licenses to be transferred to the cities with the city's blessing and the borough residents' blessing. But what I noticed when I was reading it is the process allowed the public to give comment for 30 days after a completed application was submitted, but the ordinance also allowed public notice to not go out for 30 days. So you potentially had a situation where you were just notifying the public and the public comment period would be closed. So what this does is give 30 days for the public to give the written comment after the notice is sent out. So just make sure there's the opportunity for public comment to come in.
Discussion by the assembly for the amendment. Is there any objection to the amendment? Okay, hearing no objection, now we are back on the main motion for ordinance 24-031 as amended. Any further discussion by the assembly? Yes, Assemblyperson Pop.
I just got a question for attorney.
Attorney?
A lot of talk was said that it allows it to move from the borough to the city. Is this goes the opposite direction as well, or this is only, or there isn't a situation? Can you explain that, please?
No, the state law doesn't have a reciprocal mechanism to move licenses from the city into the borough. So this comes from Title IV of the state statutes, and it's a one-way deal. There's not a reciprocal mechanism to go the other way.
So assume there's a restaurant bill that's outside of the city, and they're able to buy or whatever, there's a license that's not being used within the city. What's the procedure to move it back, or there isn't any?
Can't.
So then once the borough outside of the city loses that license, there is no way to retrieve it until population grow, or what's the?
Unless there's a change to state law, which I won't comment about the ability to do that. SB 91 took 10 years to get through the legislature. Unless there's a change to state law, no. Once it's into the cities, then there is no mechanism under state law to pull it back out. I don't know if maybe buried in the Alcohol Beverage Control Board regulations, they have something about, oh, if it gets relinquished, it can go back. I've never seen anything like that. But I can tell you for sure that the statutes don't contemplate the other way.
But within the borough, if not going to city, they can be transferred with no problem. It's
Correct.
just- But this is a one-way street, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Deputy Mayor?
So, let me understand this right. If, say, they build a Three Bears in North Willow or Susitna, and they want to take and sell beer, or whatever, you know, are they able, would they have to go through Wasilla to get a license? Or how, they don't have an option to get a license because they're not within a city, or?
No, so the ordinance before you tonight talks about the transfer of licenses. So there are a set number of licenses. Let's talk about what they call beverage dispensary, which is what we call liquor licenses most commonly. So beverage dispensary licenses are limited by population. You get so many licenses for every X many people. And what happens is a lot of times, the cities have population enough that there's no more licenses available. So you can't go to the alcohol board and get a new license. But what you can do is find one that's in a borough, could be out at Lake Louise, could be up in Squentna, it could be way far away, but it's still in the borough, and get the borough assembly's permission, get the city council's permission, get the alcohol beverage control board's permission, who are all gonna look at the, pros and cons. And if everybody agrees, then the applicant can then bring that license into the city, and then it becomes okay, even though otherwise it would exceed the population limits. For someone who's outside the city, the question would just be, is there an available license? And if there are none available, then you have to either raise your price or convince somebody to sell or
Right,
do something.
yeah. A liquor license is a golden ticket.
Yep.
It really is.
And so this ordinance tonight, what it does is it aligns our borough code with state law, particularly given the changes that the other licenses are available or can avail themselves of this procedure. And it changes the number from 1 per decade to 3 per decade that the state law allows, in accordance with the wishes of the sponsor, basically. Some of them were asked that it be brought forward to do this. Whether you actually approve one in the future is dependent upon the will of the assembly that's then sitting. Again, that's why, just for example, there was one here within the past couple months, and it was approved. So if a future assembly doesn't like the concept, doesn't like the proposal, doesn't think it's a good idea, thinks, if we're taking too many out, that's up to that future assembly to decide. This just sets the framework and the mechanism for the proposal to actually be brought forth to the assembly.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Further discussion on ordinance 24-031? Yes, Assemblyperson Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So SB 91, Mr. Attorney, was a pretty significant rewrite of Title IV, correct? So this is just a small change, and I know nothing is easy in the legislature, but this is something that we could probably address with one of our Valley delegation members to introduce some legislation in the state, and then we could align our ordinances with it later on. Just a comment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the ordinance as amended? Is there any objection to the ordinance as amended? Hearing none, and the legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 24045, an ordinance amending MSB 4.70 wastewater and septic advisory board to change the board's title to Water and Wastewater Advisory Board. If you're on the phone and like to speak to this, press *3.
Thank you. Staff report, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. So a couple of years ago, the Assembly passed a resolution to direct me to stop work on a septic facility because we presented that septic feasibility report to the Assembly. Shortly thereafter, I brought forward and sponsored legislation to disband the Wastewater and Septic Advisory Board. That was voted down. And so they've been kind of operating in this space with septic still in code, still in their title as a board. The board saw fit to suggest a change in code to align with water and wastewater as opposed to water and septic, and still serve in an advisory capacity. So they came back with a board supported resolution. So we're bringing this forward for the Assembly's consideration. I support that. There was an amendment suggested by administration that I believe Mr. Gamble will move, which removes the 2-year term limits from this board, primarily because of the expertise that we seek to staff this board it's not plentiful. So having a 2-year term limit could be challenging in terms of getting it fully staffed. So administration recommends this change, and that's your staff report, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for staff report? Yes,
So-
Deputy Mayor.
Back when you were thinking about disbanding, what was the reasoning behind it, and could you?
Sure, through the mayor to Mr. Bernier. Once the Assembly adopted the resolution that said stop pursuing a septic facility, we looked at the board and said, well, that was kind of its original intended purpose. Now, since then, we've had a lot of conversations with the cities on how to partner on water and wastewater infrastructure expansion. So I can see value in that if they're not pursuing something that's against what the Assembly provided direction on. So I think the board recognized that and said, yeah, we probably should align with what our elected officials are telling us to pursue and advise on. And this, I think, does that and allows them to serve in that purpose. The members from the city of Palmer and Wasilla are part of the staff that comprise this board. So I think it is valuable to have an advisory board that's looking at these things and working on it collaboratively. Otherwise, it falls basically on administration to go and advance these conversations without necessarily having advisory board members from the public, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Okay. I will open the public hearing on ordinance 24-045. You don't have a sign-up sheet, no? Anyone would like to address the assembly on this ordinance?
Good evening. My name is Esther Huddleston, Huddleston. I'm wondering, will this lead to trying to force people in residential neighborhoods to purchase city water and septic systems?
I don't think so. Sure.
To answer the question, no, I don't think so. This is an advisory board that would bring recommendations forward about how to expand infrastructure where it makes sense. For example, we would like to have the opportunity to expand water infrastructure where it might enable higher density development and or commercial development where drilling wells might be, impractical. As far as wastewater, that's going to be a longer term conversation about how we might do that. But I think it is helpful to have an idea of the cities potentially expanding without annexation and providing like a water and sewer district if that's something that the people want, or if there are areas where we see benefit. One of the things that brought this conversation to light was the January 2022 windstorms where there were damages to, I'm getting out of scope, I'm getting that look from the attorney. But that's what kind of brought this conversation forward about why we should work collaboratively in advancing infrastructure for water and wastewater, and the borough does not do that outside of Talkeetna.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Yeah, right.
Hello, I'm Travis. I live in Palmer. I have some questions about the how are you gonna use the water? I don't know if you have a system of reusing the wastewater, trying to reprocess it for drinking, because when you do wells, let's say sometimes it'll take a while for the wells, inside the aquifers and underneath the ground to replenish itself. So do you have some kind of system to address that?
I'm sorry, Travis, I gave Esther too much latitude there. It's not a time to answer questions, but I think we do. Let's see, we don't have Public Works in the back, do we? I was gonna say staff, we don't have anybody. I can take questions after the meeting. Okay.
Sorry.
Mike will take questions after the meeting, sir, so stick around.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Travis. Anyone else that has comments on ordinance 24-045? Okay, Caleb, we have anybody, and we do not have anybody online. One last chance. Okay, seeing no one, then I'll close the public hearing. Deputy Mayor.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-045.
Okay, discussion. Do you have discussion, or Assemblyperson Gamble has an amendment, but since you made the motion, do you have anything you want to discuss first? No, okay. So, Assemblyperson Gamble, go ahead with your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the request of the administration, I move to amend ordinance 24-045, section 2, MSB code 4.70.020D by deleting the word not. The board currently has no term limits. The word not would create term limits in code. Administration is requesting that this not occur, and I'd like to speak to it.
Yes, you may.
As we all know, it's hard enough to get board members to serve on our advisory boards, and some boards require a higher level of expertise than other boards, and this is one of those, I believe. And we currently do have a high level of expertise on this board, and I would not like to see that expertise and experience termed out. So please vote to support this amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion on the amendment? Any objection to the amendment? Hearing no objection, then the amendment passes. Further discussion on ordinance 24-045 as amended. Is there any objection to ordinance 24-045 as amended? Seeing and hearing none, the legislation passes. And then we're combining these two.
Ordinance 24052, an ordinance accepting and appropriating grant in the amount of $2,500 from the Humane Society of the United States to a project account for funding attendance to the Animal Care Expo Conference with accompanying resolution. 24051, a resolution approving the scope of work and budget for a grant in the amount of $2,500 from the Humane Society of the United States to a project account for funding attendance to the Animal Care Expo Conference. Ordinance 24054, an ordinance accepting and appropriating a grant in the amount of $2,000 from the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals to a project account for funding attendance to the Animal Care Expo Conference. With accompanying resolution 24053, a resolution approving the scope of work and budget for a grant in the amount of $2,000 from the American Society of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals to a project account for funding attendance to the Animal Care Expo Conference. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to either of these ordinances, press star 3.
Staff report, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members, Borough staff, Chris Loskar, Animal Care Director. At Animal Care and Regulation, we are always looking to improve our processes and better our agency. And one of the ways that we do that is by attending national educational conferences. These conferences provide us the opportunity to meet and collaborate with other agencies and also keep up to date on current best practices in animal sheltering and shelter medicine. So Ordinance 24052 will allow us to accept and appropriate grant funding from the Humane Society for us to attend the Animal Care Expo Conference next year in 2025. Ordinance 24054 will allow us to accept and appropriate grant funding from the ASPCA for our veterinarian to attend this year's conference. One of the other benefits to that is it will also provide continuing medical education credits for her for maintenance of her veterinary license. I'd be glad to take any questions that you have.
Okay, any questions to staff? Okay, seeing none. Okay, thank you, sir. I will now open the public hearing for ordinance 24-052, resolution 24-051, ordinance 24-054, and resolution 24-053. We do not have a sign-up sheet. Does anybody like to testify on either one of these ordinances or either one of these resolutions? Nobody online? Okay, one last chance. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Deputy Mayor.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-052, resolution 24-051, ordinance 24-054, and resolution 24-053.
Okay, discussion by the Assembly. Any objection from the Assembly? Hearing no objection, both pieces of this legislation passes. Go ahead and-
Ordinance 24055, an ordinance accepting and appropriating January 2022 Matsu windstorm disaster relief funds in the amount of $9,621.38 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and $3,207.13 from the Alaska State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, with accompanying resolution 24054, a resolution approving the work and budget for vehicles and equipment damaged as a result of the January 2022 Matsu windstorm disaster. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to these, press *3.
Staff, hi.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members, and Borough staff. I'm Lisa Weiland, Borough Comptroller. Nothing fancy here. We're just accepting FEMA money for reimbursable expenses related to the 2022 windstorm.
Okay, questions of staff? Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 24-055 and resolution 24-054. We do not have a sign-up sheet. Is anybody that would like to testify on this ordinance or this resolution? Okay, see no one. Do we have anybody on? We do not have anybody online. Last chance. Okay, I will close the public hearing on ordinance 24-055 and resolution 24-054. And Deputy Mayor.
I move to adopt ordinance 24-055 and resolution 24-054.
Okay, discussion by the Assembly. Any objection to the legislation by the Assembly? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, the legislation has passed. Okay, the next item we have is audience participation, and we do have a sign-up sheet. So our procedure is to I will call out the names on the sign-up sheet, and you will have the opportunity to address the Assembly. And after we've gone through the sign-up sheet, if there's still people that would like to address the Assembly, they're welcome to. At this time, when you address the Assembly, you can discuss with them or bring to their attention any item, and it doesn't have to be on the agenda. Esther, it's back to you.
Good evening. My name is Esther Huddleston, Huddleston. I support Robert Yunt's resolution 24-056. The Alaska Long Trail is a threat to people who live in the Matsu Borough. Over 14 years ago, snowmobile enthusiasts worked hard to keep snowmobile recreation in Hatcher's Pass. The proposed Long Trail would go through the motorized trail from the Palmer side of Hatcher's Pass to the Willows side of Hatcher's Pass. If the federal government owns the trail in Hatcher's Pass, then they will have the authority to make it unmotorized. Another proposal for the Long Trail is the historical Iditarod Trail. Many people rely on the Iditarod Trail to travel by snowmobile to haul supplies to Squitna, other villages, and to other remote locations. Snowmobiles are a lifeline in the Matsu Borough to bring food and other supplies to off-grid locations. Alaska tribes were granted land back in the 1970s. Now the Alaska Long Trail supporters want to take land from Alaskan tribes to put their trail in. Alaska Long Trail supporters will tell you that they have the right to take the land from Alaskan tribes because it's a public access easement. Hasn't the government already taken enough land from our Alaskan tribes? Alaska has a drastic change in weather. We had 40 below 0 Fahrenheit temperatures and 40 above 0 temperatures back to 40 below within weeks apart over this last winter. 2 weeks ago, I was at a track meet. It was overcast, the wind started to blow, then rain, and then it turned into snow. Within the hour, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees. The Alaska Long Trail is inviting the world to hike this trail. The Matsu Borough is limited on rescue resources, and this trail will take the emergency resources from residents to rescue people who come from all over the world, not knowing Alaska's extreme weather conditions. Another issue is safe drinking water along the Alaska Long Trail. Today in the Matsu Borough, we have people who can't even drink water at their homes because the arsenic in the water is above EPA regulations. In Alaska waters, we have Giardias, which is a parasitic disease, and it makes people extremely ill for weeks, which will be unknown information to travelers drinking out of our streams. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter confiscated 54 million acres from the state of Alaska. A failed promise that we would be able to continue to use those lands. The federal government has removed mining and other mineral development, the use of off-road motorized vehicles for hunting. The federal government has even broken the law by confiscating airboats from Alaska waters, which the Supreme Court has called out the laws the feds have broken. If you support the Alaska Long Trail, then build it on the 54 million acres of land which was stolen from Alaska residents. Assembly members, please support Robert Yount's resolution, RS 24-056. Also, the last day to comment on the Alaska Long Trail with Borough Land Management is June 28th. Thank you for your prompt and courteous attention.
Thank you. Christian Chavette?
My name's Christian Chavetta. Thank you for the time today. This came to me at a bit of the last minute. I just found out about it today was the South Connect River Council's resolution 24-052. And I take issue with this resolution because they're referencing the 2014 comprehensive plan. Quick math shows you that that comprehensive plan is over 10 years old. I personally believe it does not currently reflect the desires of the community. It more reflects the desires of the members of that South Connect River Council that have been long-term residents. I believe before taking on any such a task as devoting manpower and resources to developing such a plan, that we should review and revise the current comprehensive plan to accurately reflect and have the feeling of what the current community desires, not just what that council desires. At this point, moving towards the special district is the desire, as I mentioned, and that reflective of the community. In order to move forward, those on the council, I believe, want to use it to block any further development. When I recently subdivided my property, I was in the meeting and a member of that council specifically asked, well, how could we have blocked that? And so to me, that's just an ongoing issue that they're trying to block further subdivisions. A lot of the things they bring up in their resolution are already codified within the Matsu Borough Code that should be dealt with the current Matsu Borough Code, and that would any new regulations that they would look to implement. If I wanted to have such regulations, I would move to South Anchorage. So my question to you, the Assembly, is what they're requesting, is this reason enough to devote manpower and resources that are readily scarce? I'm sure you guys are having problems, just like everyone else in the state. Would a new comprehensive plan be better to survey what the current community desires? Should the council have conducted a survey of current residents and see, is this what they want? If you look at Alaska Statute 29.40030, Section B, it states that comprehensive plans need to periodically undertake overall review of the plan and update it as necessary. The plan is over 10 years old. There was a survey sent out in 2009 in order to complete that plan, making that survey nearly 15 years old. A quick Google search shows that there is a 20% increase in the number of households within that community from 2010 to 2020. We're coming up on 2025. Is there another 10 to 15% increase because of the different migration because of COVID? Thank you.
Thank you. David Palmer?
Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, Assembly members, my name is David Palmer, and I'd like to speak to this Mr. Yunt's proposal to oppose releasing land authority along the proposed Alaska Long Trail to the federal government. I have property under the latest proposal, and the trail would be going right over my property, and no one is talking to me. And that's frustrating. So I have property in the 9-mile area, got from the state in 1980. There's 24 private parcels in that area that I know of. I believe there's more, but I know there's 24. So I'd like to thank Mr. Yunt for bringing this to public visibility again. We talked about this quite a few years ago. At that time, the proposal for the trail north of Susitna River, where it crosses the Parks Highway, was on the east side. The newest proposal is on the west side. And we have two trails that we use to get to our property, the Amber Lake Trail and the Rabideau Creek Trail. And the proposal that I found shows them including that in the proposed long trail. Snow machines are great, but we use ATVs in the summertime. If we can't do that, I'll have to buy another airplane. So I think that's a little ridiculous because we've been doing that. I personally have had the property for 44 years, and so have a lot of the other folks. And I would like to propose that the borough provide some public information to the landowners, and I'll be calling the state tomorrow and ask them about the same subject. So anyway, I'm in support of this proposal. I appreciate Mr. Yunt throwing it out there. And anyway, I believe you have my name and phone number. If you need anything from me, please let me know. And after I talk with the state, I will pass some information back to your staff. And I'm in support of this, so, and now you know why.
Okay.
Because we use it, we have cabins in there, all these people do. So if the trail doesn't allow us to get to our cabins, that's kind of an odd thing in the U.S. So anyway, any questions for me?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Craig Price? Craig Price?
Good evening. My name is Craig Price. I'm the president of the South Connect River Community Council. I've lived in the Connect River Road area for the last 14 years and been a resident of the state for 42 years now. Our council area is a scenic gem whose boundary is the Chugach Mountains to the south and Connect River to the north. This area includes popular spots such as the Clutna Tail Race, Pioneer Peak Trail, and of course the Connect Glacier at the head of the valley. Council, through its comprehensive plan, has stated the residents' values that are essential to the quality of life, such as high air and water quality, privacy, and outdoor recreational opportunities. These items can be found on page 21 of our community comprehensive plan. In 1970, the population of the Mat-Su was 6,509 people. The Census Bureau estimated as of July 2023 that the population is now 115,239. The Mat-Su is the fastest growing area of our state, with increasing tourism and recreation opportunities sought in our area and increasing business. The residents of this area would like to have more say in guiding this growth. Partnering with our borough staff, the SPUD is a tool which can help facilitate our community input and, if needed, code compliance, this differs from the mere statement of a comprehensive plan.
Some may feel threatened or resistant to change, and particularly this change. As a council president, I welcome anyone to come to our council meetings and have input into this plan, and we intend fully to open up our meetings and talk about these on after each one of the committee meetings in order to continue to inform our community of these changes that we would be seeking through this BUD. The community looks forward to your vote of confidence, creating the special use district guided by our comprehensive plan, the borough staff, and further input from the community as the process matures. I believe everyone would like to have some say in guiding change, since it impacts our safety, mental and physical health, as well as the impact upon our property values. Thank you for this consideration.
Thank you. Jonah Bloom?
Sorry, actually I have no comment.
Okay. Travis?
Hello, my name is Travis Friesen. I live in Palmer. And I would like to start by saying thank you for doing this move in building a recycling, glass recycling place somewhere in the landfill. I feel like I just sort of feel like I'm actually sort of making a difference in some ways with as far as my recycling agenda goes, but there is a lot that needs to be done. Maybe put some more recycling bins in here. I've probably spoke about that a few times. Nothing's been done, but also, in general, people have no idea how much people throw out, and you know, whether it's bottles or cardboard. People have no idea how much is being thrown out and how much a lot of that stuff can be reused and recycled if we want to have a cleaner, greener state. So I would like for people to keep that in mind, and I'm probably being silly if they eventually build that glass processing plant, name it after me. Thank you.
Shelley Baker? Baker?
Hi there, my name is Shelby Baker. That's Baker. I just wanted to speak to the SR 24-052 about big business coming into residential areas. My family and I live adjacent to the Connect River Lodge and Alpha Aviation, which was a very small business when we purchased our land 8 years ago. We have built a family there. There's 4 generations with 18 people, and 11 of them being children. And we live off the land. We're hunter, fisher, gatherers. We trap. Quiet. We want quiet. And I think that's pretty much the sentiment of the people who live back on Connect River Road, the mile 11. Roads aren't maintained very well. Have no complaint with that. We can do well back there on our own. But just when we have every 15 minutes helicopters buzzing our houses, hearing them come in and out constantly, when it went from 3 helicopters to 12, boasting in the news that they're going to be up to 14. They're going to do heliport, and there's nothing I can do about it. My peace, I can't lay in my bed and take a nap without constant helicopters. You can hear it in your house. It's constant. And we used to hear and be able to identify lots of different birds and fowl, and we had bears coming in our yard and all this natural wildlife. That's not really much the case since new management has come over back there. I'm all for entrepreneur. I'm all for eco, travel and tourism and all of that, but it's a whole different story when it's coming in a residential area and ruining people's lives. It's just constant, 7 days a week. Now they're looking at doing heli skiing, so that's going to be 365 days a year. We're listening to helicopters, one after another, sometimes 2, 3 taking off at a time, 2, 3 coming into land, and then they just off and off and off. It shouldn't be in a residential area. Don't have a problem with the business. It just shouldn't be allowed for such a huge thing to come in to a residential area, and the people can't say anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Good evening, Mayor and Assembly. My name is Jackie Goforth. From the time I first brought 37 complaints on my own forms to the clerk here, I have been the person who is putting forth challenges. And the reason I brought my own challenge forms is because I found it very difficult on the website to find anything about the library board, including their meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So when I was told and informed that those challenges were not acceptable on that format, I had to follow the procedure. I did. So I followed the procedure, and I want you to know that I have filed, I think, 13 book challenges all year. In the past year, there's been 13. Of those, there's only been 4 that have gone to a challenge hearing. 4. I've only taken 4 to a challenge hearing. 4. Now, the challenge hearing on January 18th was for 2 books. And I finished it before the policy was suspended, and I actually sent the appeals. And I have since asked the community development director when I can expect her answer, and the answer is they're in the queue. Okay, the queue should be just 2 then. Should be 2. There should be just 2 in the queue for the Citizens Advisory Committee, because that's all I have. And I want to tell you thank you so much for the Citizens Advisory Committee that I will be speaking to and who will be looking at these books. Because it shouldn't be the 4 people I used to face who were all American Library Associated inculcated persons. And they have a biased view of what should be in a book. And it also should not be my opinion of what's in the book. Because the standards are set on the community standards. They're not set on mine. They're not set on the lesbian Marxism that is running the American Library Association. They're not set on the Amish community. They're set on Mat-Su Valley. And they're set on what's inside those books. And I want you to know that I don't have to do much because the evidence is inside the books. It's just like Devin Hilkenberg said at the Fairbanks conference for the American Library Association. She said that this content, the sexual content, needs to be put in children's hands, and to make sure that conservative families, they can put it in conservative families' hands, it needs to be hidden between the covers. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, and you here on the board, that's exactly what's between those covers. I don't have to do anything other than let people read it and let them make the decision based on community standards, not on mine. It's not my opinion, not on anybody else's. I thank you so much for this Citizens Advisory Committee. I look forward to doing the rehearing of the 2 books. Thank you for citizens who appear to have common sense and be not inculcated in American Library Association standards and also not in Amish standards. They appear to have community standards exactly as the Supreme Court set it up in 1973. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Hauser?
Hello, my name's Paul Hauser. I'm a 30-year resident out at Connect River Road. I was a South Connect River Community Council president for 7 years. I worked for 2.5 years, apparently 10 years ago, to set up our comprehensive plan. It was difficult, and it was done with total community cooperation, and they voted on it. It hasn't changed since then. It's fairly ambiguous, peace, quiet, dignity for property owners and neighbors with each other. Our community council has been docile compared to some other community councils that I hear of, and we work together respectfully. And so over the course of 30 years, I've seen a lot of changes out there, some good, some not so good. but we'd like to have a little more say on the dignity of what happens out there, so that we don't have hard industry or whatever moving in next to a residential community, or anything that's extremely disruptive to neighbors and friends. Give them their say and their dignity out there. So I ask you for your approval of the SPUD, that we can get things started on this. Well, of course, we're going to all work together on it as a community, and with you guys in tow also. So we're kind of unique out there. Again, it's 20 miles long and pretty skinny. Connect River Road, only one way in or out, so we really care about our emergency situation out there, and we're working on that a lot too. So again, we're a little bit unique, and we could use the help to maybe help govern ourselves a little closer due to that uniqueness. So thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Misht? Jennifer?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Mezich, M-E-Z-I-C-H. I live at the end of Connect River Road, and I'd like to speak to 24-052. Like I said, I live at the end of Connect River Road. I'm a small business owner, a stay-at-home mom, and I live there 365 days a year. I would love to see the SPUD move forward. I love seeing small businesses pop up. I don't want them to be squashed by the big business that is encroaching on our tranquility that we all value. I love seeing Airbnbs. I don't want to see a Princess Lodge. I'd love to see a drive-through coffee shop. I don't want to see Starbucks. I want to have the ability as a community to shape our future, because big business is already influencing our community changes that make our home lives miserable with their disregard to their neighbors, under the slogan, "It's on my property, I can do whatever I want." Several residents have already folded and left under these conditions, and they buy our properties. We learned that the work done on the comprehensive plan, although a required step, really didn't drive any change or shape anything. It's a special use district that allows the community to shape our future. I want a community-driven future, and not a business conglomerate group or a hidden outside investors shaping our future. Thank you very much for hearing all of us tonight.
Thank you. Karen?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly and Mr. Manager and everybody. I just want to thank you all, the Assembly members, for creating this advisory committee. I mean, it's been very difficult meeting with the other boards that met and the members of the committee from the libraries that met and those people just don't see the obscenity. I mean, it's there, clear for everybody to see, but they don't acknowledge it, or else they think it's fine to give to children. So I thank you for making this committee, and I'm hoping that they're all, have a good moral compass. I guess we'll find out. I think, our mayor certainly has checked this out, I'm certain. So it's good that we're going to be getting these obscene books out of the library. I mean, it's probably the most important aspect of taking care of our valley is to take care of the children, and to take care of their minds and their hearts, and to protect them from these obscene things. So I am grateful that you created this committee, and I hope that the city libraries do this also. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bridget Kelly?
Hello, my name is Bridget Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y, and I am also a member living on Connect River Road in the East Justin subdivision. I've been a resident there for 14 years now, and I have also witnessed a lot of changes. I am hoping that we get help with this SPUD moving forward. so that we can prevent big business from coming in. I'm also an operations manager of a small business myself, a helicopter company, mind you. We operate in a different area in the valley, but not in a residential area, in a motorized area. I understand wanting to operate a business for sure, and bringing small business into our community. However, the quality of life in our neighborhood has drastically decreased for all of the residents there. And we're all welcome at the community council meetings, by the way, to help bring issues like this forward in our community. So I hope that we get help approving this SPUD and moving forward to keep large corporate conglomerates out of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Plummer?
Hello, Joseph Plummer. I'm here to speak about the SPUD as well. I live near the end of Connect River Road, and till a few years ago it was quiet, and it's really just seems like no end to how big it's going to grow and how noisy it's going to get. And there only seems to just now be any regard for the people there, maybe because this is going forward. I moved from Florida in 2016, brought my family up. I commute all the way to Anchorage, but we bought a place way out here because we like the quiet. And so I think what we're trying to do is just get some teeth to the comprehensive plan, that we can actually have some kind of say that means something, because we've been informed that that doesn't really mean that much as far as having any teeth. Like some other people said, it's at the community council, it's open for anyone to speak. I mean, many of the people you hear speak against this, we never see them. Tim Hale's there a lot. I don't know if I'm supposed to point anyone out, but he can speak to that if anyone asks him. Basically, we just want to have some sort of say in what the lives are like for our families and our friends out there. And we're not against business. We're more against bad neighbors, I guess, is the way that I would put it. So that's about it. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you. Loretta?
Hello, Mayor DeVries, Assembly Member Hale, and all the other Assembly members. My name is Marietta Plummer, Plummer, and I want to speak to move forward with the SPUD in the Connect River area 24-052. As we moved from Florida about 8 years ago, moved out to the Connect River area about 6 years ago. We did want the peace and tranquility. I have read the full, the comprehensive plan, and I agree with a lot of those values. We wanted the quiet rural community, and we wanted to be participants in our local area, and we go to our community council meetings every month. I'm not a fan of HOAs or anything like that myself, but I am a fan of responsible development. Coming from Florida, I used to always gripe about how we don't plan responsibly in Florida, and urban sprawl is just atrocious down there, but we're not down there. There has been an increase in traffic, bike traffic, just in my area alone. And we are responsible. The tourists come down our road, and I'm still not walking straight from cleaning up, 30 miles of road in the public use area, because I run our trash cleanup effort. So I pick up a lot of the trash. And let's see, there are fish all the way back in our streams. I know that's very important, where our salmon spawn. And there has been increase in helicopter noise over the past couple of years. I'm a night shift nurse during the COVID period, and I commute to Anchorage, and it has been more difficult to sleep in the daytime. We don't have air conditioning. Our windows have to stay open. So some of the noise has made it more difficult to sleep. It is impacting our wildlife, and we just want to have more say in how our community is growing and trying to keep it clean, and I think by keeping it clean, that is what is attracting a lot of the tourists, and they don't know that it's the little people in our area, well, not little, that are the ones cleaning up behind everybody, and it's a lot of trash. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sam Gins?
Good evening. My name is Sam Dinges. I'm the Matsu coordinator for the Alaska Long Trail Project. My employer, Alaska Trails, is a nonprofit that does trail maintenance, advocacy, and fundraising statewide for the last 20 years. We work as part of the Alaska Long Trail, proposed 500-mile multimodal route stretching from Seward to Fairbanks. And I'm here to share just some quick information about the project, outdoor recreation, and the National Trails Act. So outdoor recreation is obviously very important to Alaska and Alaskans. According to data gathered for the State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, visitation to Alaska state parks and other public lands increased from 2019 to 2020 by 50%, and then it increased again by 50% from 2020 to 2021, and that's a trend that we're continuing to see grow. Of these users, though, 70% are Alaska residents. Outdoor recreation made up 4% of our state's gross domestic product in 2022, and that's the third largest percentage in the nation. And that's a GDP that includes oil, fishing, mining, and other large industries. And then the Matsu grew by 18,000 people during the last census, and with that growth, of course, comes bigger demand on our outdoor spaces. Since 2022, the Alaska Long Trail has generated over $17 million in federal, state, and private funding for outdoor recreation, including new trails, planning projects, and repairing well-loved existing trails. In 2022, Senator Murkowski secured funding for a National Scenic Trail feasibility study for the project. Bureau of Land Management is currently conducting this study and plan to release a formal draft route this fall for public comment and discussion with land managers such as the Matsu Borough. There are only 11 national scenic trails in the nation, and the economic benefits to residents along those trails is enormous. A major impact of the designation is that those trails can apply for federal funding for maintenance for non-federally managed sections of the trail. National scenic trails do not have to be on federally managed land, and they do not become federally managed by receiving the designation. They are assigned an administrator whose job it is to coordinate with different land managers, stakeholders along the route, and significant provisions exist in the National Trail Systems Act to protect rights of access and cooperation with land managers for development, including resource development. I would encourage you all to take a look at, again, that's the National Trail System Act. It's available online, and you can look specifically at the administration and development, and as well as the rights of way and other property sections of the Act. I'm about out of time here, but I think the project provides a strong candidate for being proactive about addressing our outdoor recreation needs. More people are getting outside. We need to do that responsibly. And I'm glad to talk with anybody here or discuss more about the project, NST designations, or to trade some trail stories. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Sam. Lindy Moss?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Borough Manager, and Assembly. I'm here to invite you actually to our 20th anniversary of our state championship for Alaska Yes, which is youth education and shooting sports. It is a 4-day event, and this year we'll have the largest contingent of athletes we've had since before COVID. I have 94 kids signed up. 94 kids translates to over 300 people when you count coaches and parents and grandparents and siblings all attending to watch the youth shoot. So one day of that event will be held up at 7th Summit here in Matsu at the end of Carmel Road on Friday the 7th, which I didn't do that on purpose, but on Friday the 7th, between 9 and 4 o'clock, I'm inviting all of the Assembly, Madam Mayor, and the manager to come out and see what these kids do and see what we do with them. It's really a fantastic event. The kids come from all over the state. I have 6 teams in Southeast, and this will be the first state championship since COVID that I've had all 6 teams from Southeast in attendance represented. So it's a huge deal. The one thing that is really important to all of you is the economic impact of having that event here in Mat-Su. It is absolutely massive. And as we continue to develop the park, once we have at least 4 combo trap and ski fields, with the entire state championship, all 4 days of it will be held here in Mat-Su. And all my teams can't wait for that to happen. So I just wanted to give you that invitation. I have copies of a flyer that I give out to potential sponsors, and it addresses the economic impact. So I'll give that to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Stephen Wright? No.
Madam Mayor, Manager Brown, Assembly members and staff. My name is Stephen Wright. I'm a property owner on Crooked Lake, and I'm here to talk about your ordinance serial number OR 24056, which is just being introduced today. It's my hope that when the opportunity to vote this up or down, that the Assembly will retain this property for public purpose. It has been used for decades as access to Crooked Lake. Many property owners, this is their only way to access their property through this lake. And the public uses it they swim there, they go fishing there. It's the only place on Crooked Lake you can launch a boat. The ice road starts at this property. And it's my hope as a representative of the property owners on Crooked Lake that when the time comes that the Borough Assembly will at this ordinance and retain this property for public purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. That public hearing on ordinance 24-56 will be on the 6th of June. So you're welcome to come back at that time, or your comments have been entered now. Thank you. Oops, sorry, folks. Max? Max?
Hi there, my name is Max Mezich. My family and I have lived at the end of Knik River Road for 7 years now. For the most part, it's been very peaceful and quiet, which is the exact reason that we moved out there. Unfortunately, in the past 2 years, approximately, the heliport that we live next to decided to dramatically expand their helicopter operations while completely disregarding input from any of their neighbors. The decision to expand has negatively impacted not just my family, but all of the surrounding families that are in close proximity to the heliports. This big business does not respect or care about the input of their neighbors as they have shown in the past 2 years. I'm not against business or expansion as long as it's relatively considerate to their neighbors around them, especially in a residential area like we live in. Having a heliport and having helicopters flying over our houses, like my wife was saying, all hours of the day. I go outside, I can't even hear my wife's conversation I'm having with her because every at least hour or two of the day there's a helicopter flying, if not more. So for this reason, I am strongly in favor of Knik River Road becoming a special use district so that in the future, big businesses can no longer come in and completely disregard the impact that their actions have on their neighbors. And again, for anybody who's against this, feel free to join us at the community council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred? Fred Sy?
Good evening. My name is Fred Sear. It's spelled C-Y-R. And I'm here on the RS 24-052. I'm a member of the South Knik River community, and I support the SPUD as an opportunity to discuss the future of the community with the members of our community. As a community, folks have wrote in our comprehensive plan that it's the desire of the community to preserve the residential qualities that have made the Connect River community such a attractive place to live, and control the amenities of the development are desired of the community. The SPUD gives us that exact opportunity to engage in dialogue and make choices together on our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane?
Good evening. My name is Diana Sear. I am also a member of the Connect community. I just want to reiterate that our community is growing, and I do support all the entrepreneurs that we have within our community. We have a brand new general store, and my granddaughter has her own businesses, and I do think that we do need to have the help of the assembly to support our application for the SPUD. I greatly support it, and we certainly could use the support from the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Reach? Craig?
My name is Craig Rich, C-R-A-I-G, Rich, R-E-I-C-H. I've lived on Connect River Road my entire life. One of the reasons we've lived out there is we don't want all the rules. We want to be free. We don't want everybody telling us what to do. I understand all these people who moved out here have different dreams and different opinions. I think that kind of went away the day they paved it. I mean, that brought in the traffic. First time someone knocked on my door and asked me my dog won't bark after 8 o'clock. All I could do was laugh. His one job is to protect my kids. If that's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, if he's out there barking, there's something in the yard. So I'm completely against the SPUD. I understand their side of it. If it does go through, I sure hope you choose me as one of the people for the board. I own the general store out there. I've ran my tile and stone business from my yard out there my entire life. I was a union carpenter. I've helped build this entire estate, so if you do go through with the SPUD, I hope it's someone like me you put in there, but one of the reasons most of us moved out there was just to be free. And that's it.
Thank you. Mark Johnson?
Hello, Mayor DeVries. I'm Mark Johnson. I'm a 42-year resident out on Connect River Road and a lifetime Alaskan. As far as 24056, I participated with my family in the Great Denali Trespass. I am absolutely opposed to the long trail and the limits on all outdoor motorized activity anywhere near that trail or crossing the trail. There will be problems with that. I can just about guarantee if that goes through. A lot of the outdoor recreational people will not put up with it. And I urge you to stand against this. As far as the Connect River SPUD, I am against it. I am a business owner. Over the last 10 years, my wife and I own 2 Airbnb cabins. We've hosted over 2,000 people now in the 10 years that we've been doing this. And our guests tomorrow night are coming from Finland and Spain. We've hosted people literally from all over the world in our cabins. We have made our cabins extremely low impact to our neighborhood, and I push every other business to do that. As far as the spud, I am opposed to it. I believe this can be handled through our existing borough regulations and through the code compliance and everything. I know that they have the sound machines and different ways to actually test the sounds in the neighborhood to see if they're excessive and whatnot. If the lodge and the helicopters are going over their original permit, then the borough needs to hold them back to the standard of the original permit that they're operating under. I would also caution the borough and the community council to be very, very careful on going forward with this type of action. If there's people on the community council or in the neighborhood that have personal beefs with the helicopter company or the lodge or any other business up there, if they are allowed to bring forth a personal vendetta, and I feel that some possibly are, that I feel could potentially open up the borough and the community council to potential legal actions. And I'd caution against that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Sir, that takes care of the people that did sign up. Is there anyone in the audience? Yes, just come forth. That's all right, no problem.
Good evening, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to speak to you. My name is Amy Reed, R-E-A-D, and I am speaking about the topic that's at hand of the SPUD, Connect River. I'm actually an original homesteader out on Connect River Road, and it was before the road was even there, and it was deemed the road to nowhere, and I gather that it's no longer the road to nowhere. So there is a quality of life that everybody who lives there, from the time we homesteaded to so many people who have since moved out, that people want to have that quality of life and to preserve it. And we are finding that it's really hard to do that without some support. And that's really what we're looking for with the SPUD. We've spoken at our council meetings. Mr. Hill, Assembly Hill's been to many of our meetings, and we've tried to get support to try and help with our community growth and the concerns of people who live there. So we were actually told that it would be helpful if we could do a SPUD to help guide the community's wishes. And as everyone else has said, our council meetings are open to everybody, for everybody's input, because we are a community. And so we would just really like your support in trying to move forward with helping the wishes of the community to have some backing so that we can have a peaceful life and maintain a quality of life that we're all there for, and to help preserve our wildlife and our spawning fish and everything that goes with the Great Alaska Outdoors. So thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, just come up. Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Angela, and I'm also speaking about the SPUD. I've lived out on Connect River Road towards the end since 2009 when my family moved up. And since then, I've gotten married, and I actually have a kid of my own now. I'm starting my own family, and I still live out on Connect River Road because I fell in love with the beauty and just the sereneness and honestly the community. It's a very tight-knit community back there. And I'd like to move in favor of the SPUD, especially with, I'm growing a little family of my own back there, and it'd be nice to know that, my daughter's not gonna grow up, like Jennifer sitting next to a Starbucks. And so I would just really like to move in favor of the SPUD, and like Marietta said, there's, picking up all the trash and all of that, and I mean, I get stuff dumped right next to my house, and some of the stuff is even, in concern of contaminating my own water supply, you know? So it'd be nice to have the spud in order to, you know, keep the quality of life out there, the sereneness and the cleanliness, honestly, of all of it, especially for, you know, a little grown family out there. So anyway, thank you for your consideration.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Karen, come.
I'm Karen Crandall from Big Lake, and I'm part of the library board for the Big Lake area. And I just wanted to thank all of you for working so hard. I know that it was a chaotic meeting, January 18th of this year, and so you've come a long way. You've accomplished a lot with getting this advisory, Citizens Advisory Board. I thank you for the selection, Bill, of your choice, because I'm now getting very involved with what's happening in the Big Lake Library area even more. So I just wanted to thank you for all the accomplishments, and I hope that we can move forward in getting rid of the books that are very questionable and not good for our youth and our families to be exposed to. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karen. Anyone else? All righty, here we go. Okay, first person online, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ruth Wood, and I'm calling from Talkeetna.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Respect for your community. Okay, thank you. Respect for your community, integrity in all public matters. Be fair to all in your community, especially to those who hold opinions different than yours. These are three of the qualities I've always strived to implement as I served on and as chair of the Talkeetna Community Council many years ago. Unfortunately, these values seem to have been lost to Mayor Edna DeVries and District 7 Assembly Member Ron Bernier. I've reviewed the vacancy report and the mayor's appointments for confirmation by the Assembly for the Library Citizens Advisory Committee, and I am appalled. As you can see, 13 people who live in District 7 applied for the District 7 seat. After all, at the Assembly meeting where the committee was established, Mayor DeVries stated that it was difficult to get people to apply for boards, and that was the reason the ordinance didn't require appointing people who lived in the district. She said she would attempt to appoint district residents to the seats. So she had 13 people to choose from, yet she's asking for confirmation for someone who doesn't live in our district, and she's asking to appoint him chairman. In addition, the appointment for District 6 is a resident of District 1, as is the other applicant. Mayor DeVries could have appointed Chad Scott to that seat and made him chair, but she chose to ignore our community's wishes. Mayor DeVries told KTNA News that she was making the appointment recommended by Assemblyman Ron Bernier. Unfortunately, Mr. Bernier does not communicate with our community, so he doesn't know what we want. The only time I reached him by phone, he told me that he didn't attend the community council meetings, but maybe he'd see me in church. As I don't attend the same church as he, that doesn't help much. I was one of the applicants for the District 7 seat. There was no reason to choose me over the other 12, well qualified, I might add, applicants, but one of us should have been chosen. We all should have been contacted by Assemblyman Bernier and the mayor before someone outside our district was recommended. As far as I know, none of us were. I know I wasn't. I would ask that before you approve these appointments, each assembly member state whether they recommended the person who is up for confirmation in their district this evening. And if that person does not reside in their district, the reason for their recommendation. Mr. Scott lives in District 5 and very close to District 7, but he does not live here. He should not fill this seat when so many others are qualified to do so. Book banning is a very serious matter, and regardless of your assertion to the contrary, these appointments is just that. As I learned as a consultant, perception is reality. These appointments are intended to set up a committee that will recommend banning books. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person online, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Samuel Schilling. I'm a resident of the Caswell community. I'm born and raised Alaskan. I'm also president of Get Backcountry Free Riders nonprofit, a voice for the Eastern Peninsula and motorized community. Express my strong support for your proposal for RS 24-056. This resolution is vital for maintaining local control over the Alaska Long Trail within Mat-Su lands and opposing the BLM's plan to designate it as a national scenic trail without adequate consultation. As a leader in the motorized community, I understand firsthand the importance of these communities. The Alaska Long Trail is more than just a scenic route. It is a crucial asset for motorized recreational activities that contributes significantly to our local economy and culture. My organization, along with countless enthusiasts, rely on these trails for snow machining, off-roading, and other motorized activities that bring us together and support our way of life. The BLM's proposal to turn this trail into a national scenic trail and place it under federal control threatens our access and the management practices that have observed these trails for local use. Yunt's resolution rightly highlights the lack of communication from the BLM with local stakeholders, including our borough and the motorized community. This lack of engagement is unacceptable and undermines the cooperative spirits necessary for effective land management. It is crucial that we maintain local and state control over these trails to ensure that they are managed in a way that reflects the needs and the interests of our community. Handing over control to the federal government risks imposing restrictions stated in the National Trails Act Systems Act that could severely limit our ability to enjoy these trails as we have for generations. I urge the Assembly to support RS 24-056 to protect our rights and preserve the local management of the Alaska Long Trail. This resolution ensures that any changes to the trail status will be made with full consideration of all stakeholders, including the motorized community that depends on these trails for recreational good. Let's keep our trails in the hands of those who cherish and use them most. Please support for future trails in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person online, please.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Patty Fisher, Fisher. I live in Assembly District 7. I have a question for the mayor and Assemblyman Bernier. Now, I know you will not answer this question during this hearing. I believe it is incumbent on you to give some explanation to this issue in the future. And the issue is, why did you nominate someone from District 5 to fill the District 7 seat on the Library Advisory Board? Why? There were 13 applications from District 7 residents, 13 District 7 applicants. And yet it seems that you could not fill that seat with a District 7 resident? Why? You are robbing District 7 of their right to a position on the board. Mayor, when this ordinance was discussed several months ago, it appeared that you intended to respect borough districts and appoint a district representative if one applied. Well, 13 applied to this board from District 7. The reason for this failure on your part has got to be a pretty darn good one for you to ignore 13 district candidates. It is the principle of the issue that is my concern. The fact that you have ignored district residents for a nomination to a board. This should not become standard operating procedure. In a democracy, it is the responsibility of elected officials to serve their constituents, not the other way around. We do not support the assembly person or the mayor. He or she supports his constituents. And that is not what is occurring currently. We are being ignored. As I said, District 7 is being ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person online, please.
Hello?
And go ahead. We hear you.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Assembly, thank you. My name is Michelle Stevens, and I'm Vice President of the Alaska Outdoor Council. The Alaska Outdoor Council and its members stand firm on protecting public access for all trails. The AOC Board of Directors voted unanimously to oppose the Alaska Long Trail location along the Parks Highway and state public lands. A federal trail paralleling the Parks Highway from Anchorage to Fairbanks makes no sense. Too many people access off the highway along the parks. If there were a trail, we would prefer federal funding to be spent on a real historical trail, such as the Copper Railroad access from Cordova to Kennecott. If there were to be an Alaska Long Trail, we support RS 24056, where the borough asserts jurisdiction of management of all borough and trail and uses. The proposed National Scenic Trail designation by the Borough of Land Management threatens to restrict motorized use under Section 7C of the National Trail Systems Act. This could result in the closure of many cherished trails for snow machiners and other motorized users. Our aim is to ensure that motorized access remains a priority and the management of these trails stay under local and state jurisdictions. Thank you. I wear many hats, and I think I still have some time left. My name is Michelle Stevens, and I am the president of the Alaska Snow Machine Alliance. The Alaska Snow Machine Alliance is a statewide snow machine alliance. Our alliance supports snow machines throughout the state of Alaska and all snow machine activities. There are 15 clubs in our state, and 7 of these clubs are located in the Matt Valley. We will be directly affected by the Alaska Long Trail. All 7 clubs depend on funding and have contracts with the Mat-Su Borough for grooming trails. Therefore, we support RS 24056, where the borough asserts jurisdiction of management of all borough trails and uses. The proposed National Scenic Trail designation by BLM threatens to restrict motorized use under Section 7C of the National Trail System Act. This could result in the closure of many cherished trails for snow machiners and other motorized users. Our aim is to ensure that motorized access remains a priority and the management of these trails stay under local and state jurisdiction. And I'm sorry, I have one more hat to wear. My name is Michelle Stevens, and I am president of Petersville Community Nonprofit Corporation. And Petersville Community Nonprofit is a community group, 125 miles of winter trails. We depend on funding and have contracts with the Mat-Su Borough for any section of our trails to become a scenic trail would be devastating to our community. Therefore, we support RS 24056, where the borough asserts jurisdiction and management of all boroughs and trail uses. I see that I'm out of time, and I thank you for your time to listen to me.
Thank you. The next person online, please.
Hello, my name is Kathy Trump, Trump, and I am from Talkeetna, Alaska. I'm here to comment on the Library Citizens Advisory Committee. 23 people applied to be on this board, and 13 were from District 7. 13 people applied from District 7. Of those 13 people, no one was selected. Instead, Chad Scott, a local pastor in the Meadow Lakes area, was selected by our representative, Ron Benier, and Mayor Edna DeVries. Scott apparently does not live in District 7, but instead lives in District 5. The question is, why did our assembly member not choose one of the 13 candidates who applied from our district? 3 of the borough libraries are in the northern Susitna Valley: Willow, Talkeetna, and Trapper Creek. Yet now we do not have any local representation on the board. This is wrong and frustrating, and it calls into question the validity of this committee. At the meeting to create the Library Citizens Advisory Committee, which overturned the Nonpartisan Challenge Material Committee, We were told the committee would try to choose one person from each district, but that, in fact, is not what happened. I am adamantly opposed to Chad Scott being put in for the representative for District 7. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Next person online?
Oh.
Yeah,
Good
hello?
evening, Assembly members. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Assembly members. My name's Lisa Agnew. I'm a landowner and a frequent user of the Mat-Su Borough lands. I'm also president of the Anchorage Snowmobile Club. I rely on these lands for both subsistence and recreational purposes, especially for motorized use, and I also support public access to trails. I'm here today to express my strong support for this resolution, 24-056. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, continue.
And the support of many other motorized users. Furthermore, on behalf of the Anchorage Snowmobile Club, I can say that we have not been reached out to as stakeholders in this matter for input, or were made aware of any public comment meetings, and this is very concerning, as I hear it's the case with many others. I'd like to note that the proposed National Scenic Trail designation through the Bureau of Land Management can severely restrict our access, putting them under federal control and potentially limiting use. The National Trails System Act, which governs this designation, Section 7C, states that, quote, the use of motor vehicles along any national scenic trail shall be prohibited, unquote. The only exception is that motorized use shall be prohibited in accordance with regulations prescribed by the Secretary of the Interior. Our trails are lifelines for subsistence, recreation, and the local economy, and I believe that the Mat-Su Borough has a history of responsibly managing these lands while balancing multiple uses and respecting the needs of most trail users. Bringing the federal government in to have say in land use can disrupt this balance and possibly impose a one-size-fits-all restriction that may fit the lower 48 but does not reflect the unique needs of our Alaskan community. I do not believe the federal goals always match Alaskan goals and values consistently. An example is when the BLM imposed restrictions in the White Mountains National Recreation Area that severely limited motorized access despite significant local opposition. Another example is on the Kenai Peninsula with the 15-year management plan. I urge you to vote in favor of Resolution 24-056, and I urge the public to provide commentary on the BLM's project page for this action before June 28th. By doing so, I hope that this will preserve our local control of our lands and our ability to use these trails for motorized activities, and ensure that the management of these lands remains in the hands of who would know them best. Thank you for your time, Assembly members, and your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else still online? Okay, go ahead. Next person online.
Yes, hello, my name is Michael Bowles. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, so I am a South Kinnick River Road resident, have been since 2010, and my wife is a lifelong Kinnick River Road resident. I am calling in to speak against the SPUD. So I've been listening, and I understand the concerns that my fellow residents have. The helicopters are an annoyance. I don't live all the way down at the end where the cabin is, or the cabins are, and I can only imagine how annoying that is. Did 2 years in Iraq, and I flew in helicopters, and yes, they're very loud. That being said, there are ordinances already in place that prevent, or that are supposed to prevent, noise disruptions above 85 decibels. And I myself have called in multiple complaints on things such as junk cars and the squatters, and quite frankly, when the helicopters buzz our house, and I've never gotten a response from the borough. So what I recommend is, before moving towards creating more regulation that the borough is not going to enforce the ordinances that are already in place. So work with the residents and enforce the code that's already in place. We need right touch regulation, as Governor Levy said. We don't need more regulation. We need to enforce regulation that's already in place. And that's really all I've got on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person online, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Dave Smith, and I would like for you to listen to this recording, a Mat-Su official telling me how you're looking out for the best interest in the public. You pass waivers for the worst contractors in the history of the Mat-Su borough and take away minimum standards bonds and say it's okay to use shovels. This sounds like a disaster that will have a negative impact on the public safety.
Under the new contracts, there's no minimum equipment requirements. You don't care. I mean, if you want to put guys out there with shovels, you can do that. Under the old contracts, there was, and for graders, all the different stuff. That's all been stripped out of this new contract.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on, is there another person? One, okay. The next person online, please.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. I come before you today with a heart heavy with frustration and concern. It pains me deeply to witness what happens to be a blatant disregard for integrity within our community, particularly with the esteemed Matanuska-Susitna borough. We've seen recent events unfold that call into question the very principles upon which our public institutions are built. The decision to grant Noki 2 and Battleground a special waiver, allowing him to bypass the waiting period for bidding on MSC work after his tenure on Assembly, raises serious red flags. Less than 12 hours after obtaining this waiver, reports surface of collusion and price fixing among competing contractors, including Battleground himself. This is not mere speculation. It is a betrayal of public trust. How can we, as a community, stand idly while such blatant disregard for fair competition and ethical standards unfold before our eyes? Signing a non-collusion statement should not be an empty gesture. It should be a solemn commitment to uphold the principles of fairness and transparency in our bidding processes. I cannot fathom how anyone, let alone elected officials, Mike, Rob, or anyone, could turn a blind eye, such as egregious misconduct. The fact that individuals entrusted with the public good would allow this to happen is nothing short of a travesty. It's a slap in the face to every hardworking contractor who plays by the rules and strives to serve our community with integrity. And what of the broader implications? What message does this send to prospective bidders, to those who seek to contribute to the betterment of our community through honest? Are we to accept a culture of cronyism and special treatment for well-connected, while those who play by the rules are left to fend for themselves? Moreover, the disregard for minimum standards and the caviar attitude towards the quality of work being done on behalf of the public is simply unacceptable. We cannot afford to compromise on safety and quality in the name of expediency and favoritism. The consequences could be dire, affecting not only the integrity of our infrastructure, but the safety and well-being of our citizens. I implore those in positions of authority with the MSC to take swift and decisive action. We cannot allow this culture of corruption and favoritism to persist unchecked. It's time to hold accountable those who would betray the public trust and to reaffirm our commitment to fairness, transparency, and the highest standards of integrity in all of our endeavors. Thank you.
Can you state your name, please, for the record?
Yes, my name is Sierra Gutierrez.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Guitierrez.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else online, sir? Okay, so I'll bring it back here. Anybody that hasn't testified under audience participation is welcome to address the assembly. Okay, seeing and hearing no one, I'm going to close audience participation, and we're going to take a break. We'll come back at 8:40. Travis, me, I'll get a hold of Mike.
To the two people that are on the phone on hold, the person with the phone number 57, the last two digits, 57, can you tell me who you are? Again, with the two people that are on the phone, there's a person on the phone with the last two digits of 57. Can you tell me who you are? Okay. Thank you, Caleb.
I'm going to go ahead and call the assembly back to order, please. Caleb, do we still have Assembly Person Yount on the phone? Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call the assembly back to order, please. And we are on the consent agenda. And I know there were a number of items that were pulled, but does the assembly have anything additional to pull? Can I have quiet in the audience, please? You can take your discussion to the lobby if you'd like to. Okay, thank you very much. So, anybody else want to pull anything else? Okay, I don't hear anything. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
AM 24056, authorizing the Borough Manager to sign a grant application to the Alaska Sustainable Salmon Fund for fish passage improvements at the culvert connecting Kings Lake with Anderson Lake and the Anderson Lake Outlet Culvert at Charlie Drive, and authorizing submittal of the application. AM 24057 awarded bid number 24132B to Battleground LLC in the contract amount of $1,002,600.10 for Fairview Road Service Area number 14, annual road maintenance.
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
That is an objection. I'm sorry. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for moving the consent agenda as read by the clerk. Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, then the consent agenda that was read is approved. Now, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 24052, resolution directing staff to assist the South Kinnick River Community Council in developing a special use district. It was pulled by Assemblymember Gamble.
Okay, Assemblymember Gamble, would you move, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move Resolution 24-052 and the associated IM 24-096. And I moved it to amend it, but I'm going to wait until after Assemblymember Hale speaks to it.
Okay, all righty. So there is a motion on the floor to move RS 24-052. Discussion? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this first came to my attention last spring, I think. It might have been February or March, but some folks from the community reached out to me and they said, there was some things going on in their community that were not in compliance with their comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2014, and asked me what I could do about it. And I told those folks, a comprehensive plan is not an enforceable document. If you want something that has teeth, you have to get a special use district. And so those folks took their concerns to the community council, and the community council decided to pursue the special use district. Throughout this process leading up to today, we've had some frank discussions with administration and the community council, and the administration and I have both been very clear that there are things that you can and cannot do with a special use district, and I think that those things are are very important. But it is a process through which a community can govern themselves, right? It is a community process. It involves every single individual in the community. Everyone is welcome to put their input into it, and I think it's a very healthy process. I know there was some concerns mentioned earlier about enforcing the rules that we have on the books, and a lot of these issues that we have that are being addressed at the community council meetings, there simply are not borough regulations to enforce on them. When we talk about the sound meters and the sound pollution, the only borough regulation on noise is amplified noise. So noise coming through speakers. Something like helicopters operating or other types of noise are not regulated by the borough. So for a lot of these issues, there simply is no enforcement mechanism. And, when you go through and you draft these comprehensive plans and you get the entire community to buy in and to get it approved and get it all the way across the finish line, you kind of expect that's the vision for your community, you kind of expect it to be honored. But the way that we have structured our government, there is no way to enforce those comprehensive plans unless you go through the additional process of creating a special use district. So that's what these folks want to explore. This will come to us again when the final product is finished and the community has voted on their SPUD, yay or nay, and it will come to us and we will look it over and we will vote yay or nay as well. So this is just the very beginning of the process, and I hope that everyone will support me and support the community in starting this process.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion on the main motion?
This is Assembly Member Young. May I?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, first I want to thank everybody for their great testimony. There was good testimony on both sides of this, and everybody had many had good reasons and many had, like I said, good heartfelt testimony. So here's my concern, right? And I agree, it was mentioned earlier that someone would rather see a small coffee shop than, say, a Starbucks and so on and so forth, and I agree with all of that. My question is, could a small business operate a helicopter any quieter than a big business, right? And so, that's I guess we've worked really hard as a body since I've been on here this last 3.5 years to encourage tourism. And what I'm hearing is now that we're finally getting it, and then suddenly we're going to be against it. I don't know if there's any way to get to the connect. I'm gonna have my brother fly me up there, I guess, and look around. I don't know if there's any way to get up there and look at all these amazing things that everyone's looking at without going over residential. So really, the question that I feel like we're asking ourselves tonight is, do we want to shut down tourism out there altogether? Aerial tourism, I should say, aerial, right? Or do we not? And I'm very sympathetic to the concerns out there, but I can't support that. So I don't know how to do it any different, regardless of what size the business is that owns the helicopter service. I don't know how you do it any quieter or any different. You're not going to do it outside. You can't just do it select hours. I don't know how to do it any different. Nobody proposed any ideas today or solutions on how to make it work for both sides. And so for that reason, like I said, we've worked hard to encourage tourism and expand that, and I think this would put a big hurt on that, and so for that reason, I can't support it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Assemblyperson Gamble, are you? Oh,
Did somebody else want to speak to the main motion? I'll wait to do my amendment till they're done.
okay. So you're not ready to make your amendment then?
Well, I think there's some people that still want to speak it to the main motion first.
Oh, okay. Yes, Assemblyperson Hale?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to point out that, there are things you can and can't do with a SPUD, and shutting down Alaska Glacier Lodge and their helicopter operations is one of the things that you cannot do with a SPUD. So that's really a non-issue. As far as presenting solutions, the entire idea of the SPUD is to go through the process and collaboratively find the solutions. So, you know, we're at the very beginning of the process. We have not, as you say, begun to present solutions, because we cannot begin to present solutions until we start the process. So again, we can't shut down existing businesses, and we will be presenting solutions through the process of doing this SPUD. So.
Okay, did somebody, Person McKee?
I really heard what you're saying, because in Fairbanks, we went through a similar situation, and then we also went down here where the whole face of the neighborhood was changing. You thought you moved to paradise, and all of a sudden, it isn't anymore. You have to do whatever you can do within the law. Every process, every person has to be contacted. You're gonna have to work your fannies off, because you're not gonna get everything that you want, I guarantee you that. But through the process, talking to each other and coming up with something that's somebody gives a little and somebody gets a little, and vice versa, that's the only way that's gonna work. But you're gonna have to get together. When I heard the first speaker, it was like I thought, well, they're not even letting everybody talk. Well, actually, everybody else said, y'all come on. So we got, in our small neighborhood down here, we got a road. We couldn't put basically a highway through our neighborhood, and it didn't happen because every single one of us got out and just flat foot worked it to death and worked it through every step. So Tim's right. You got to go through the process. It's good that you were here. And for those of you who are not on the side of the SPUD, join in, because that's how your voice gets heard. But I want you to know, I know how your heart feels. It's like a punch to the gut. So, but work through it. You'll get there.
Assemblyperson Hours?
I don't think I can top that. Those are pretty wise words. And same goes for the folks that are, concerned about the issues in the neighborhood. Like, reach out to your neighbors, because what I've seen with these processes is, like, certain people are aware of things. You get all the way through the process and people come out of the woodwork. So you got to address the concerns that your neighbors have. Because I think what people don't want is everybody telling everybody else what to do. But what I'm hearing you say is, like, you're not looking for that. You're just looking for some balance. Like, I invested a huge amount of money in my property. I kind of had this expectation, I moved to the valley for these reasons, but I don't expect to have somebody buzzing a hairdryer at my window all day, or, things. You just don't, you expect to have a lot of latitude in the valley, but you aren't the first community that's woken up and all of a sudden, like, your ability to just enjoy your house has gone away. So I would just say that Assemblymember Hale said at the start of the process, so this is not talking about shutting down helicopters. And I hope you can include those guys too, and come up with something. Like, they need to be able to make those helicopters go, but they're probably, I don't know, are they running at 11 at night, 12, is it, 20, is there some way to, maybe the heliport gets located somewhere else? Just, I always try to think of practical solutions, but I do respect that people in the valley do not have the expectation that what their neighbor does can really, like, completely affect their value of the property and their use of the property, and they have no compensation or input on that. So I think a SPUD is a good way to go. Just try to get as many people, knock on all the doors, because if you don't, people will hear something about it and they'll be like, you're just trying to tell me what to do with my property instead of giving you a chance to, like, meet your neighbors. So sorry, that was a long, like, speechy thing, but I just want to see the community succeed. And, like, up here, we're always looking for community agreement. If we have half the people wanting it and half don't, it's really difficult for us to tell you what to do. So thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate and listening to the testimony.
Assemblyperson Hale.
Yeah, just one last thing. Anybody who thinks that folks in Kinnick are going to let somebody tell them what they can or can't do on their property doesn't know very many folks in Kinnick. So.
Assemblyperson McKee.
I just wanted to mention one more thing too, and you've got to sometimes go all the way to the top. When, I think, Stephanie, you were saying maybe have the heliport located in a different area. Kirk Lannerman was the head of, like, West Tours or whatever it was, one of the biggest at that time cruise ship companies in the world. We had a sit down with him. He changed many of the things that we had objected to because they were changeable. I guess they just hadn't thought about it before. But they want to work. People don't want they don't want you all coming out there and shooting out their helicopters because you don't want them there. But so they may have not even thought of some of the things that you're thinking of, but you, don't let up. And just take it all the way to the top.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, if there's some way you could talk them into flying out of like the racetrack or somewhere off the old Glen, and then just go on up the other side of the river, you know, and come to the glacier that way to avoid flying right over your house and stuff. I don't know if that's plausible or, you know, what it would cost extra or what, but, you know, that might be an idea, so.
Okay, further discussion, okay. Assemblyperson
I
Fauna?
feel like I'd like to have somebody on the staff side to explain how this would impact and what would it do, because we really didn't have anybody from. I briefly talked to Manager Brown during the break, but I believe that would be something that would help us make a better decision, at least for me personally. So I don't know if I could ask for that.
Yeah, through the mayor to Mr. Fonoff in the assembly. So I got to phone a friend in the back, but let me see if I can lean into this a little bit. This resolution simply is for the assembly to say, we recognize the community council's desires and that we direct the manager to commit staff resources to starting this process. Because these can be somewhat contentious, we don't want to go dedicating time and leading a community through a process that the assembly hasn't said, go and do this. That's all this resolution tonight does. If you say go, then staff will go and work with the community to develop what a SPUD might look like and go through that process. But because of the nature of them, we check first before we just start doing. The community council formally passed a resolution requesting this action. So we're bringing it to you to say, is this what you want to do in terms of dedicating staff resources to this effort? We have not done any work to develop any solutions to this problem. That's what we're talking about tonight is, do we go and do that work?
Okay. That answer your questions?
May I?
Is it okay?
Rob said something else.
Oh,
I was gonna
thought he was
have
asking
if
him.
Alex will fill in a different, maybe some.
Assemblyperson Yount, go ahead.
Yeah, I like I said, I stated some concerns that I have, and I think they're very, you know, in some ways major concerns. But I can support starting the process. Let's see. I wish the community had came to us tonight, and staff with some proposed ideas, so we could just see some of those tonight on what it may be. But I guess I'll support starting the process, and let's let it work through. And see what kind of ideas they come back where they can figure out a way to make it work for both sides. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyperson Fanup, I think, wanted.
I think Alex might have some to add.
Do you have a question, sir?
I'm gonna continue if there is something that you can add, and how in previous, I think.
Can you take it through the manager, please?
Say again?
Can you take it through the manager, please?
Sure, how I guess the Talkeetna has in a certain area, how that was established, what it took place, and how that is impacting what I guess benefits and how that came out. Because just to compare how this would also move forward, and just to give us a little bit of background and a little bit of education is what I would like to have, please.
Okay, thank you. You okay?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Alex Strawn, Planning Director. To Assembly Member Fanov. So the Talkeetna Special Land Use District is our most comprehensive and detailed SPUD that we have in the borough. It has sub-districts. It regulates the floor area ratio in some of those districts. It has regulations for signage and lighting. It's very comprehensive and detailed zoning in the Talkeetna Special Use District. At one point, the city of Palmer had a SPUD. It became the city of Palmer zoning rules. Same with the city of Wasilla and same with the city of Houston. Those were all SPUDs at one point. There's also SPUDs that are not detailed at all. They just have a few very basic regulations that are in addition to or different than what's in general borough code. So it can look a lot of different ways. I believe Talkeetna SPUD was adopted in the early 2000s before I was in the department, and so I don't have first-hand knowledge of how that process was created, but I think it was quite intensive, and ultimately the community agreed to do it. As far as the South Connect River Community Council is concerned, we have not spent a whole lot of time to learn all of their issues. I know that the business at the end of the road is definitely a concern. It would be grandfathered. A special use district could potentially have some effect on existing businesses, but would not regulate them out of existence, that's for sure. I know that there are other issues that they're also concerned with. I believe that minimum lot sizes is something that has been brought up as something they have concerns with, and we have yet to explore what other issues they have concerns with, because we wanted to go through this process before we spent a lot of time with them.
So, through the mayor, Alex, if you would, just for expectation management, describe just quickly the general time frame to get there and what is the approval process, so that the assembly has some sense for, like, how long does this go on, what does it look like, and how does it ultimately get approved?
Yeah, so the answer to that question is it's highly variable depending on how many issues the community wants to tackle and how extensive they want to get. I believe the Meadow Lakes Special Use District, which ultimately failed, took 2 years to develop. You can expect that, so it would absolutely involve mailings, several meetings, would be formation of a planning group that would work on developing this SPUD, probably a vote at the community council, and then ultimately it'd come back to the planning commission and go to the assembly for ultimate approval. But you can expect best case scenario, just under a year probably to develop one of these things.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, sir. Alrighty, so back to discussion.
I guess
Assembly person.
I'll continue that. Based on Mr. Hill's what he said, you can't, the people that are live in that district, you can't really tell them or dictate them what to do, but at the same time, they want to come together and dictate to what others can and can't do. It seems it's a double-edged sword, so I don't know if it makes sense, and especially what Alex brought up as far as the specific business that was brought up would be grandfathered. It doesn't really address that issue, maybe what they're trying to achieve. So I have the same concerns that Mr. Yunt had, so that's where my hesitation to put a lot of resources in that, knowing that main issues that's on the table is not gonna be addressed. That's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, Assemblyperson Campbell?
Through the mayor, I just have a question for staff, if that's okay? So Alex, once a SPUD is passed, how do you enforce the provisions of that SPUD?
So, to the mayor, once a special use district is adopted, it becomes a chapter of Title 17, and it becomes law. And so, just like any other violation of borough code, if we receive a complaint or we see that it's out there, we will open up a case and enforce it just like any other section of borough code.
Assemblyperson Alex?
Thank you. Through the mayor. Sorry, Alex. Practicing your squats.
All right.
So I'm trying to think maybe how to phrase this question, but advantages and disadvantages of a SPUD, right? Like disadvantages, there's some areas where you can't do things, but for businesses, I'm wondering if you can just kind of speak to, like, I assume Talkeetna has a business district, so if you're like, hey, I'd like to start a business, where can I do that? Like, no business wants all their neighbors mad at them. Like, I don't know if you can just kind of give an idea of what some of the advantages, disadvantages that you've seen with the SPUDs.
Well, certainly in Talkeetna, that has like a Main Street district, And I guess one of the advantages, is clearly what your rules are. One of the disadvantages is that sometimes it can be over-regulatory. It depends on how it's written, to be honest. A SPUD could be just something that says there's a minimum lot size of 2 acres. That's the end of the story, and there's nothing more to it. It's just a geographic area that has special restrictions on it, or special rules to it. So it's so widely variable, it's hard to say what the advantages and disadvantages are. It all depends on how it's written.
Fair enough. No,
Okay.
no, that helps. Just, I think it's neighborhoods trying to, or people trying to, like Talkeetna wanted to preserve the character of Talkeetna because it's important to the tourism and important to the people who live there. So, again, I think we're just starting the process, but warning to the people getting involved, it can be a really long process. And to Ms. McKee's point, yeah, you got to get out there and do your work.
Okay, you ready to do, are you still wanting to do the amendment? Okay.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is at the staff's request, and it is just to clean up some of the language in the resolution 24-052. So I move to amend resolution 24-052 by striking the words "to follow the planning and land use department guidelines" from the "now therefore be it resolved" clause. The amended paragraph will read as follows: "Now therefore be it resolved, the Assembly does hereby approve the request for planning staff to assist the South Connect River Community Council to develop a special use district." And if I could speak to it
Yes,
just
go ahead,
briefly.
sir.
It's my understanding that there is a potential for some legal problems with the original language in the clause, and this actually, if I'm not mistaken, Alex, it gives the community council a little bit more, well, it doesn't leave the burden if something doesn't get resolved on you to resolve it for the community council or for the community. Is that correct?
Through the mayor. So that is correct. It allows more flexibility in the process. And it does have a couple of provisions that to me were quite concerning, one of which was if there's a dispute in the community on one of the provisions of the SPUD, that the planning director has the final say on what it says. I don't think that's a power that I would like to have. But there's other concerns also in there that I just think it's a good guideline to start with, but I think we need some flexibility in the process.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Is there any objection to the amendment? Okay, so the amendment has passed. Further discussion on resolution 24-052 as amended. Any objection to resolution 24-052 as amended? Okay, we do have objection. Okay, Madam Clerk?
If I can get the members in the room to vote, please. Main motion, Assemblymember McKee. Is it not lighting up? Okay, we're gonna do a voice vote. Can you go down and check hers in a second? Sorry, Assembly, we're gonna do a voice vote very quickly here. No. What, hold on. Assemblymember Fonoff.
No.
Assemblymember Gamble.
Yes.
Assemblymember Nowers.
Yes.
Assemblymember Hale.
Yes.
Can you go down and check her thing? Assemblymember Bernier.
No.
Assemblymember McKee.
Yes.
Assemblymember Yunt.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Fonoff and Bernier opposed.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, and then Madam Clerk, I believe we have.
We do, and it's resolution 24-056, a resolution to oppose releasing land authority along the proposed Alaska Long Trail as it pertains to the National Scenic Trail feasibility study, and it was pulled by Assemblymember Nowers.
Okay. Go ahead.
Would you like me to move it? Yes. I move RS 24-056.
Okay, you want to speak to it?
Sure. Well, I actually have a question of staff, if I may.
Okay.
Because I'm confused. So, we're always concerned about federal overreach, but the National Scenic Trails Act, what I looked at, even if it got the designation and we're a long way from that point, the borough would retain, so 2 questions, the borough would retain management of the lands that we have, like it doesn't give getting the designation does or does not put it in federal control.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Nowers and Jillian Morrissey for the record, Community Development Director. So to answer your question, from everything that I read, actually the way the resolution is written actually supports what I found in, if you look at what a National Scenic Trail is. So administration, when they talk about federal administration, that's the coordination among the different landowners. So be it private, be it state, be it federal, be it a local municipality. Management is the on-site jurisdiction, which would be the borough. And so even if the National Scenic Trail designation went forward, the borough would maintain on-site jurisdiction of our lands. Did
Okay.
that answer your question?
Yeah. So I have a proposed amendment that would just change, sorry Lonnie for dropping this on you, but it's in the now therefore be it resolved clause. And it would say, now therefore be it resolved, the assembly is opposed to relinquishing authority over borough-owned and or operated trails and lands. And then strike and opposed to overreaching restrictions through a national, just strike the rest of that. So to speak briefly to that, it would maintain the borough's position that we should own and operate trails and lands. It just would allow the scenic trail process to go forward. We're still on record that we want to maintain control. And I guess I'm just concerned, we think this is something that could be a real traction for the borough. We know it could bring in a lot of dollars, and I'm just concerned that if we aren't participating, that they might just cut Matsu out of the whole trail system, and I would hate to lose that. So I'd like to go on record with the we don't want to relinquish authority, but continue to preserve something that would allow us to have this trail in our borough and benefit borough residents as long as it doesn't take away management from us.
Madam Clerk, do you have the amendment or do you have questions?
I don't have the amendment, but I can listen to the audio, and I think Assemblymember Nowers could probably repeat it, because I think it's on her computer. No, you don't have to. You don't have to, because I don't have it in front of me to write it down.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment. Assemblyperson McKee.
Please repeat it.
Yeah, I was just reading an article in the ADN, I guess it was today. This is only a study. It's a feasibility study. It's kind of like when we did the West-Susitna access, and I'm still don't know what I'm going to do about that thing. Maybe we won't have to, given what the state's doing. But we said that we needed a study going forward to see if it was even feasible. I wanted to know if what I was voting on was even feasible. So this is just a study, and at this point, nobody makes a decision other than to say, yeah, it's a good idea and this is how it looks, or not. All permits, rights of way, and other cooperative agreements would have to be made during the management plan portion. Another part of it said federally required by law to work with state and local landholders to determine land use and maintenance rules, including motorized vehicle use. So they're required by federal law to work with every body that's affected by it. So I don't see it as a problem. So I'm talking about your amendment. Go ahead. We're saying at this point, when we get to that point, we're not giving up control, but it's not preventing us from getting to that point. I think we got to get to that point. We got to talk to people, talk to these folks that are doing this study, so that we can see where it's going. So that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, Assemblyperson Yon, go ahead.
I got a question for staff or the attorney, whoever feels comfortable answering it. When the federal government gets in management position or co-management position, and when they put money into a project and they have strings attached to that, this is very apparent. I'm sure all of us have looked into this, or I hope they have in the last 10 days since this resolution went live. Is it possible for them to change direction as different administrations are elected? Is it possible for them to change terms or conditions of it? Can anything be changed in the future by the federal government without the Matsu Borough being able to stop that once we give up control of our lands, once we give up management rights?
Go ahead, Nick.
So your question is, if the federal government gives us money and they have a grant agreement such, and there's terms and conditions in the grant agreement, can they later change those terms and conditions? Generally, the answer is no, unless the grant agreement itself says, oh, and by the way, we reserve the right to change all these terms and conditions. We typically don't sign grant agreements that say that. Most grant agreement, actually, an overwhelming majority of the grant agreements come through my office for review before the manager signs them. And if I ever saw anything like that, I would highlight it and tell him, hey, let's have a conversation with the granting agency. So generally speaking, the answer is no. Most grant agreements don't say that. I can't imagine a scenario where if the federal government came in and said, hey, we're going to establish this trail and operations, but here's your management principles that you have to abide by, that we would agree to a provision that would say, oh, and by the way, we can unilaterally change this whenever we feel like it. Does that answer your question?
Assemblyperson
It does,
Yonke?
yeah, it helps. Yeah, thank you very much for that. I know in speaking with staff at the borough today, we've still not been able to get correspondence back from them. I guess for me, what I don't want people to think this resolution is me speaking against this trail. I've actually hiked part of it. I would love to see it finished. I have grave concerns at the idea of the Matsu Borough ever relinquishing any sort of control to Washington, D.C., or even Juneau for that matter. This resolution is simply, it reaffirms our commitment to the project that we voted on in May of 2021, I believe it was. It reaffirms that I personally think it would be amazing to see this finished. I would like to see it finished with borough dollars and state dollars, at least on the portion in our borough. But it's very clear when you look at the potential issues with being able to cross it. I think we had 10 or 12 people speak to this tonight. You're not guaranteed that you're going to be able to cross it later. It doesn't give any, from what I could find, it gives no path forward or potential path forward for mining. It always gives a path forward for emergency crossings. But, man, there is a lot of risk in doing anything with the federal government, in my opinion. And I wanted to get that on record. Like I said, I'm not opposed to this trail. I'm actually fully in support of it. I just don't want to see the Matsu Borough relinquish any sort of control of any of our lands to anybody other than ourselves, and that goes for even Juneau. So I would like to see full support of this amendment tonight. Or this resolution. I apologize. To me, it's very common sense. I don't think the borough should ever give up control of its lands to anybody other than ourselves.
Further discussion on the amendment? Assemblyperson Vaughn.
When the amendment kind of was proposed, I didn't understand because it was kind of long. What is, I guess, in short, can you describe what you're trying to achieve for that?
Yeah, I think so. This would be on record that we do not want to relinquish authority over our trails, but it doesn't close the door on the National Scenic Trail designation. And my concern is I don't want to see the borough lose out on something that could be a big boost to our economy. And I can see the people doing this trail moving forward and just maybe not doing the borough. So it keeps us on record that we don't want to relinquish authority over those trails. It just doesn't close the door on a National Scenic Trail designation as long as it allows us to keep management of our trails and make sure that people can have motorized access and access to their properties.
Isn't that the whole purpose of the resolution, to keep it in our hands so that we don't lose it? So, I mean, we're amending what the resolution is meant to do.
The part I'm striking is the part that closes the door on, says the borough doesn't support says we don't support National Scenic Trail designation. So it keeps us on record that we don't we want to maintain control. It just doesn't close the door on the National Scenic Trail designation. That's what the amendment does.
Okay, Mr. Young.
May I?
Go ahead, actually. You'll probably answer that. Go ahead.
That is not at all, in my opinion, what that second sentence does. Could you please reread the sentence you're trying to strike into the record?
I don't have it.
So I'll read the, now therefore be it resolved, the Assembly is opposed to relinquishing authority over borough-owned and/or operated trails and lands. This is the part that gets struck. And opposed to overreaching restrictions through a National Scenic Trail designation on the Alaska Trail, Long Trail within the boundaries of the borough.
Right. In my opinion, that doesn't say we don't support the project. It just says we don't support overreaching bureaucracy, which I think is common sense, and I think it speaks very well to the 10 or 12 people who testified tonight. They asked for the same thing. Again, I'm not trying to say that we don't support the idea of building a trail. I'm trying to say that we don't support the idea of any potential future overreaching bureaucracy, and so I can't support this amendment. I want to leave it exactly as it is.
Okay, but, Deputy Mayor, Assemblyperson McKee, go ahead.
Yeah, in support of what Stephanie's talking about here, when I first read this, I thought, geez Louise, we're gonna tell them we don't want a scenic trail like the Appalachian Trail, and there are a whole lot of these kind of things, and be such a blessing and a boon to the state of Alaska. When I was in college, my business degree was in travel industry management, and something like this is like the goose and the golden egg and all that sort of thing. I think we have to be careful that they don't take over what we don't want them to take over, but maybe somebody ought to look at Appalachia and see how happy they are with the Appalachian Trail, the states that it crosses through, and see maybe what they think about it. So I just think that the language that came in, as I said, geez, we don't want this? Yeah, we do, but we want to be able to have some control. And I think where it says, like I said before, federally recognized, federally required by law to work with state, local landowners to determine land use and maintenance rules, including motorized vehicles. So they're not saying we can't do it. They say, let's talk about it. Maybe there's certain areas where you can use motorized vehicles, maybe not. I don't know, but we won't know until we get it studied. But I like the amendment.
Okay, Assemblyperson Hale.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to offer a secondary amendment, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Lonnie.
That is okay. Yeah, I'm sorry that I said that out loud.
Okay, instead of striking the entire second sentence, we would strike only the words "through a National Scenic Trail designation." So therefore, the second or the final paragraph would read: "The Assembly is opposed to relinquishing authority over borough-owned and/or operated trails and lands, and opposed to overreaching restrictions on the Alaska Long Trail within the boundaries of the borough." So we're not saying we're opposed to the National Scenic Trail designation, but we are saying that we are opposed to overreaching restrictions within the boundaries of the borough.
Okay, discussion.
I think that satisfies everybody.
Discussion on the secondary amendment? Objection?
I could fully support the secondary amendment. I could support that.
Okay. Is there objection to the secondary amendment? Okay, seeing, hearing none. So then that changes the main amendment, right?
Yep.
So now we go back to
Primary as
the
amended.
primary motion.
As amended, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so now before you have RS 24-056 as amended.
You have the primary amendment as amended.
Okay.
So we're not on the main motion yet.
Okay, so you have the primary amendment as amended. Objection? Hearing no objection. Now we're back to the RS 24-56 as amended. Discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Hale.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank Mr. Yunt for bringing this forward. You know, I think that what this resolution does is it says to any future administration that we will not relinquish our authority over our trails on our lands. And so any future administration that gets approached by the state or the feds or anyone else involved with the Long Trail project saying, hey, give us this authority, the administration would then come back to the assembly, whoever they might be at that time, and say, hey, we're considering this authority, but there's, this resolution on the books that says that the borough is opposed to relinquishing that authority, so what do you guys think? And I think that that's a really good idea. There may be things that we're not opposed to at that time, but for now, if anyone wants us to relinquish any authority, the administration has to come back to the assembly and say, what do you think? And I think that's a great thing, so thank you, Mr. Yunt.
If I may, Tim, thank you. I'm not there. It's a little bit harder during these meetings when you're calling in to get things across sometimes. I couldn't have said it any better. I think your amendment made the resolution better than it was before. I am not in any way, shape, or form against this trail getting finished. I am adamantly opposed to it getting finished with strings attached. I don't want to see the state of Alaska, a good portion of it, turned into a national park. So I just want to get it out there on the record that we're going to be opposed to any sort of overbearing regulation yet later that would oppose or restrict mining operations and other things, timber operations from being able to cross. And I don't have any confidence in Washington, D.C. And so, or even Juneau for that matter. So I'm all for the trail getting built. And by the way, much of this trail is already built. There's just some short areas that need to be finished. And so I'm not against that happening. Like I said, I'm just against somebody trying to come in and say, hey, we gave you money, and because of that, we want to take over control of the management. There's only about 20% of this trail, give or take, when it's done, that even is on our land. So this resolution speaks specifically to the land or to the trail as it sits on the Matsu Borough lands. And those are the ones that we're speaking about tonight. So, yeah, I think, as amended by Mr. Hale, I think this resolution is just nothing more than common sense, and it speaks to us still wanting to build the trail and see it finished someday, but it also speaks a loud, strong message to that we don't want to give up control over the management of it. That's all, so that we can continue to do resource development and other things in the future. So, and snow machine and all the other things that everybody talked about tonight. So, thank you very much.
Assemblyperson McKee.
Just one last comment, and I'm glad all those things that you just said, Robin. I was remembering when Casey was up at giving his talk about why do people come to Alaska. This guy on this page here, 25.1% come for outdoor recreation, and I can tell you, back in the late 80s, the number 2 industry was tourism, and this is what they don't want to just see it on a TV or sitting in a train. They want to get out in it. This gives them that chance to do that. And I was reading, New Zealand has something like, and they have very similar scenery to ours. Their average stay is 19 days. Stay in Alaska is 9 days. So if people see this, what I don't want to do is put off the federal people and say, well, Alaska's not going to cooperate, just forget it. I want this to be here, and so I like both the primary and secondary amendment, making that a little easier for those folks to swallow and just say, well, those are independent Alaskans, but they do want this. So I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Assemblyperson Yount, previously there was an amendment that was in the red folder. Are you interested in that amendment, or are you pulling it? Or not bringing it forth, I guess. Sorry for the... Assemblyperson Yount? We lose.
I apologize. I do not have that in front of me. Could you please have Mr. Bernier read that into the record, and I will let you know if I'm comfortable moving it or not.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can I clarify that this should probably be a be it further resolved instead of just a therefore be it resolved?
Okay.
Thank you.
He wanted you to...
Or if Lonnie could read it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Clerk's going to read it.
It would be be it further resolved, the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Assembly reaffirms its commitment to the Alaska Long Trail for the reasons expressed in Resolution Serial Number 21045.
Did you still
Yes,
want
I would like to move that.
You do want to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you want to speak to it? I
think it says it very well. I still want to see the project happen, like I said, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm not, and that's what that amendment clarifies. It, and I forgot that it wasn't in the main resolution. So I don't want anybody to think that we don't want this project to happen, and that's what that amendment speaks to.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment. Any objection to the amendment? Okay. Now you have before you RS 24-056 with both amendments. Any further discussion? Any objection? Okay. Hearing none, then the legislation passes. Madam Clerk?
AM 24058 awarded bid number 24139B and 24142B to Big Dipper Construction in the contract amounts of $1,516,687.50 and $1,773,975 for the Kinnick Road Service Area number 17, zones 1 and 3, and Kinnick Road Service Area number 17, zones 2 and 4, for annual road maintenance. Assemblymember Yunt declared that he had a conflict of interest on this, Madam Mayor.
Yes, I believe he does, so if he could recuse himself.
Madam Mayor, if he could declare what his conflict
Okay.
is before you rule on it.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
I am related to the family that is being awarded this contract or potentially being awarded, and therefore I do not feel comfortable voting on it.
Okay, all righty. So my acceptance of your abstaining is accepted. So further discussion on AM 24-058.
Can we get Assemblymember Bernier to move it, Madam Mayor?
Okay.
Legislation.
It's AM 24058.
I move AM 24-058.
Okay, discussion? Did you want, is your light on? Okay. Sort of hard to see down there when you see who's lighting it. Is there any objection to AM 24-058? Seeing and hearing none, then the AM has been approved. Madam Clerk.
Introductions for public hearing on June 4th is ordinance 24056 and ordinance 24057.
I'll go ahead and say there is no unfinished business and there's no vetoes. So, okay. Deputy Mayor?
I move it to introduce the legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearings for June 4th, 2024.
Okay. Discussion? Objection? Hearing none, then the legislation has been introduced. The next item is the vacancy report. Deputy Mayor.
I move to confirm the mayor's recommendation as follows. Agriculture Advisory Board, resignation of Kim Berge. Board of Ethics, resignation by Rebecca DeBusk. Library Citizens Advisory Committee, Nancy Bertels. Michelle Dempsey as Vice Chair. Aaron Malone, Dorothy Denshin, Eric Palin, Susan Gardner-Hillman, Chad Scott as Chairman, Nan Potts, and Sally Pullen. Parks and Recreation and Trails Advisory Board, Kimberly Wachoff. Port Commission, Christopher Gertsian? I hope.
Yep.
Sorry.
It's okay. Okay, any discussion? Yes, Assemblyperson Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to divide the question and take the Library Citizens Advisory Board members, number 6 and 7, separately, as a separate group.
Okay. Is there objection to dividing the question? Yes, Deputy, okay. Does everybody understand what we're doing now?
We've divided
No.
the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Assemblyperson McKee is, she's still messing down there.
So apparently there's objection to dividing the question.
Yeah, well, Deputy Mayor already did that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So, comments on dividing the question? Okay, so Madam Clerk?
If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote on division of the question. Assemblymember Yunt. Assemblymember Yunt. Oh, we left. He's no longer on the phone, so I'm going to display the vote. Madam Mayor, it is a tie. Let me get this division of the question down properly. So we have Assemblymember Fanoff, Assemblymember Bernier.
I'd
and
like to actually pull my vote. Let's divide this question.
So are you wanting to vote
Because I'd
again?
like to really speak to it and let people know what's going on and the real reason why Chad Scott is in there, and let's,
You could do that under the regular vote. You
Okay.
don't have to divide the question or just say, start
Okay.
the discussion.
So we have Assemblymember Fanoff, Bernier, and McKee opposed, Assemblymember Hale, Gamble, and Nowers in support. Let me get this real quick, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry for taking so long.
That's okay.
Okay.
Alrighty, so I'm voting no. So, okay. So now further discussion on the vacancy report. Now you can talk.
okay. Well, I would like to say that there are many qualified residents in District 7 that could have filled the seat for the Library Citizens Advisory Committee. Many with good common sense, many that do not support the American Library Association that pushes LGBT agendas and woke ideology. Many that believe in the 10 Commandments, many that believe in family and country, 2 genders, and 1 God. Chad Scott meets all these qualities and more. He was raised in Meadow Lakes. He grew up there. His grandfather built the B&J Center right there in Middle Meadow Lakes. He's been actively on the Meadow Lakes Community Council for 8 years. He chairs the safety board on the Meadow Lakes Community Council. He voted for District 7 in 21. It wasn't until last year when they redistricted that put Buttercup, the road that he lives on, as a border. So he lives on one side of the street is District 5, the other side of the street is District 6. And he is all Meadow Lakes. He doesn't have anything to do with Big Lake, Knik. Meadow Lakes is his home. And he was in Meadow Lakes when I got elected, and he's the man for the job. If somebody from District 7 that met those qualifications, I would have stood up behind them. But I didn't see anybody out of those 13 that applied that I would like to put in that position. Thank you.
Further discussion on the vacancy report? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot with this because the way it is right now, District 1 is going to have 2 members on the board. So that's kind of a win for District 1. But I did think that it was important that folks were from the district for the chair that they were sitting in, which is why I asked to divide the question. But now that it's been settled, I have no other objections to the vacancy report.
Okay. Further discussion? Is there any objection to passing the vacancy report? Hearing, seeing no objection, then the vacancy report has been approved. There is no other new business, there are no referrals, there are no reconsiderations, so, and there's no executive sessions, so it's time for parting comments. Mr. Attorney.
Glad to see Mr. Brown is still with us after the 4 o'clock meeting.
Yay!
There were no comments, so I figured I'd be the first to say it. I look forward to presenting him with his 3-year award this year.
Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Jackie Goforth and Karen Lewis for all the work that they put in on this. They were recognized at the Valley Republican Women's Association meeting, so your work is noticed. You've done well. We did good. We got her done. Thanks.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, parting comments?
I hope this shirt doesn't offend anybody.
can't even see what it says, but anyway. Yeah.
I do want to thank everybody for coming out and thank the Lord. We ask you for forgiveness for our trespasses. We thank you for your grace and your blessings. We pray for our veterans, for our first responders, our military. We pray for our elderly, our youth. We ask you to help the sick, the poor, the addicted. Please give our leaders wisdom and guidance. Please help us to love our neighbors, to do your will. We pray for our enemies. May you bless us with love and patience. Please love us. Help us to share your love and message. In Jesus' name, amen.
Parting comments? Assembly
Yeah,
Person Hale.
thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank everybody for supporting my effort to help give Connect Community Council the tools to address their own problems. I really appreciate that.
Assembly Person Nowers, parting comments?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a good meeting. I just, my only comment on the library board would just be from looking around at what's happened in other communities, that we have to be really cautious that the committee understands that you can't ban things on content you don't like. And any community that has board or function that has done that, if it's not obscene, if it's just because you don't like the content, you get sued. And so I've been really pleasantly surprised by the work of the school board district committee and how they've run that meeting. I really appreciate that they have time limits on how much people can talk, which maybe the assembly should have. And that, you know, they kind of have a process. This is your checklist. And I hope that the process we have is like that, and it's understandable to both the public and useful for the people who are serving on the committee. So I wish them well.
Mr. Brown, parting comments? Madam Clerk, parting comments? Assemblyperson Gamble, parting comments?
Yeah, I just want to comment also on the SPUD process. It's a shame that we have to go that far. I mean, I know I spent at least 2 years working on the Big Lake management plan, and then another 3 or 4 years working on the Big Lake comp plan. And then we went through something similar where the state came in and was going to sell 370 acres right with Meadow Creek, one of the most critical salmon spawning habitats through our community, without hardly any input from the community. So I wish that those comp plans had some teeth to them. I wish that the lake management plans had more teeth to them. We put no wake zones and quiet hours. I mean, we had meetings where we had to have troopers come in and stand at the door because they were so contentious and confrontational. But, you know, it's a messy process. It's a process, and I'm glad that we gave the South Connecticut River Community Council, the community there, the tools to kind of help shape their future. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Ponup, no parting comment. Did Assemblyperson Yount come back online? No, okay. So with that, then I will adjourn at 9:43?
I think so.